It's 7:30 and you're very welcome along to Thursday's Off the Ball. Coming up today, we're getting stuck into the Henrikh Mkhitaryan story. We're also going to be joined by Curtis Fleming, who recently departed as his first team coach role with Middlesborough over the past couple of weeks. We're also going to be chatting to Eoin McHale, and he's not the only Mayo legend on the show today. Kevin Kilbane, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Eoin. How are you keeping? All good?
Very well, very well. You were at the first Mayo game in New York. You're going to Castlebar this weekend.
Yeah, I am. I am and I was, yes, that's right.
The 100% record of attendance is continuing strong.
Yeah, I didn't get to too many league games this year, actually. I wasn't able to get to too many, but I made the final, which was great. So, yeah, it's a great summer this year. It's nice that there's no tournament or anything like that, so I can get to a good few games across this summer, so that'll be great, yeah.
We never actually got into New York last week when you were in with Adrian Barry and myself. How was it? I
mean, you can have a sensible conversation about our recent trips to the US, can't we?
Well,
without any scrutiny coming our way, really.
No judgment is all I'm asking for, Kev.
It was great. I really enjoyed it. It was nice. You know, I was out there with cousins, and I was seeing loads of friends out there as well. So it was actually quite special, really. It was really good because obviously the turnout was phenomenal from the Mayo support, but just in general, it was a great trip, really, really good trip. As you imagine, anyone goes to New York, anyone who has been to New York knows what a great city it actually is, but to go there with friends and family, it was great. Yeah, it was fantastic.
It's just this brilliant sort of element of the championship, the pilgrimage that people from Connacht, whatever county it may be, like last year, the picture of pretty much all the population of Leitrim waiting for a subway and stuff like that. It's the sort of images that are kind of synonymous with it. It was tough to get tickets, so you did well to actually get in.
Yeah, where there's a will, there's a way, and I think that's what they say, isn't it? It was difficult. There was so many that I spoke to when I got to Manhattan as well. Around, look, any tickets available? Can you sort? And I've had that conversation with so many over the years about trying to sort tickets out. So this time I tried to distance myself from asking for tickets. But luckily enough, I got sorted, so there was no real dramas getting in. But when I got to Gaelic Park up there in the Bronx, there was probably, I mean, I got there 2 or 3 hours before the start of the match, and there's probably 1,500, 2,000 Mayo fans outside without tickets trying to get into the ground. So the turnout was phenomenal. There's probably another few thousand that didn't even bother going to the game because they didn't have tickets available. They just went out there for the fun that New York brings.
Yeah, for sure. And Saturday Night Lights this week, it totally creates it.
Yeah, 7 start. Yeah, I'd have liked it to be a little bit early, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. I think it'll be. I mean, the atmosphere will be great anyway with the game that's going ahead. So. Yeah, I think there's a lot of positivity around the side, considering what happened in the league and how that Kerry game went, and certainly after the New York game, there's nothing to really judge that on. We can't gauge anything from that New York performance, I don't think. But I'm looking forward to this weekend. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a cracker.
Yeah, well, we will get Eoin McHale's take on that game a little bit later on. Let's tell you what else is coming up this morning on OTB AM. We're going to have the sports pages coming your way in just a moment. Transfer rumours at 7:50 this morning. There's been so many of them over the past couple of days that we're going to do this every couple of days to try and keep you up to speed on what rumours.
Enough across this summer, won't there? There'll be enough transfer rumours across this summer.
I'm telling you, like, if you take Manchester United alone, you probably have an entire summer's worth of rumours. So we're going to get Kevin's I guess recommendation on whether or not these are good ideas, whether or not these are bad ideas, and his rating out of 10 on how likely these rumours are in terms of actually turning out to be true. We're going to get into Eoin McHale then at around 8:05, and then after that, in the second hour, we're going to get into UEFA and Azerbaijan, a bit of a deeper dive into why exactly Henrikh Mkhitaryan can play and why exactly UEFA have such a good relationship with Baku and Azerbaijan. The sports news at 8:35 with Phil Egan, and then Curtis Fleming is coming up at 9 o'clock. It'll be interesting to get his thoughts on his departure from Middlesbrough. Before that, it is time for the back pages. And I'm going to start this morning with the Times Ireland edition. They lead with the big news in rugby yesterday that the IRFU has agreed a new contract with David Nusafora. He will continue as a performance director with the IRFU until the end of the 2021-2022 season after he signed a 3-year extension. So he spent 5 years in a similar role at Australian Rugby Union before being appointed by the IRFU in 2014. So he's already been in this gig for 5 years. The other story there, as you can see on the back page, FIFA scraps 2022 plan for 48 teams. So Ireland's hopes of getting to Qatar have taken a substantial hit, I dare say, as FIFA have ruled out the expansion to 48 teams. I guess.
What's your thought quickly on that one as well? Because I like the format as it is.
Yeah.
I remember when it went from 24 to 32 as it was, there was a big thing around that. I like the format. I remember through Italia 90. Remember 3 teams got out of the group that we were in, ourselves, England and Holland, wasn't it? In the 3 teams could qualify, which is the same sort of format that's for the Euros now when that was expanded. I like it as it is. I like the 32. I think it's a great format, but maybe as you say, it just diminishes or restricts our chances of qualification, I suppose. But I don't know. I just think the format actually at the World Cup is great. It's going to 48 for...
for 2026.
2026, sorry, isn't it? Yeah, so... we'll see how that goes for that one here. But
it probably doesn't need to be diluted any further. You still have the potential for crazy things to happen from nations that you wouldn't ordinarily watch play.
Yeah.
If you went to 48, it kind of gets to the point where you're actually going to have those, I don't want to use the word minnows, but you're going to have a lot more pointless games that between teams that aren't really going to actually affect things. Like that group with Spain and Portugal last year, who was in it with them? Iran and was it Morocco with them?
Was that what it was?
I can't even remember at this point. It's like last summer feels like 10 years ago. But like you had the crazy potential of what happened in Group A last year or Group B, whatever it was. Like that, I still like that. I still like having 32. Like if you reduce it back to what it used to be, I think it is the elite, and you will have a higher concentration of good games. But I still like the potential of a fairy tale story in the World Cup. Well, but 48 is a bit too far.
With the 48, you certainly have that the potential for a fairy tale story. But I'm with you that I think that the nations that will be going into it will. I think we could potentially be looking at a few 6 and 7 nillers and things like this.
Yeah.
And when you're getting that, it certainly it obviously aids the top sides as well. The goal difference is going to come into play across that as well, and I just think it just diminishes the quality on the tournament itself. But it's about getting nations into the tournament for the World Cup. It's about sponsorship. It's about money. We know that's what it's all about to get the expansion in place. That's what it'll be, won't it?
Yeah, just confirmation there. It was Iran and Morocco in that group with Spain and Portugal.
Knowledge. I wouldn't have known that.
I can't believe I've managed to remember a detail from just last year. It's incredible. Also, as well, we have to remember that if it wasn't for Iran and Morocco, we wouldn't have seen the single greatest moment of World Cup 2018, which was that guy who tried to do somersaults throw-in. That was, without question, the best thing that's ever happened in football. So keep the 32 teams is what I say.
I remember an ex-teammate of mine, Steve Watson, used to do that years ago when he did it at Newcastle, probably in the early 90s. So he was an ex-gymnast, Steve Watson, so he could do that quite well.
And did it work? He managed to catapult and get the spring off his legs to throw the ball further.
He could actually throw it a mile. He threw it a mile pretty much like the lad at the World Cup last year. Unreal. So, yeah, he could do it. And he did it a few times when I'd signed for Everton, but he never, not on a match day, he did it in training a few times for us, You've
got the Irish Daily Star this morning?
Yeah, Daily Star. That's the interesting one on this one as well. It's the headline is back me or sack me. That's the one with Maurizio Sarri with Chelsea at the moment. Now, it's an interesting one because we just said before to know that lead up to a Europa League final, the pressure is on Maurizio Sarri. Another little side one as well is on Luca Connell. We'll probably come to him. So Connell will not take a Luca anywhere else. Luca Connell, the big talk of him, that he still qualifies for England at the moment. Is he going to be declaring for us fully? Mick just said to him, look, he's in the squad. He's basically in to train unless he rips it up, essentially, what he's saying, though. That's another one there. But interesting on the Sarri one. Obviously, Europa League final next week. I'm looking forward to the game. I think it'll be a really good game. The Baku is a side issue, I suppose, from it. But the way that Chelsea has been going about things, the compensation that's just been agreed for Antonio Conte this week, 9 million. Is it 90 million they've paid in compensation to managers over the years? I think if Sarri can get away and he gets a payoff, I think he'll be gone. And I think it'll be a nice way for him if he does go winning a trophy, because he's still not won a trophy throughout his career.
This entire season for Chelsea has just been one giant game of chicken. Sarri in the press saying, I dare you to sack me, I dare you to sack me.
Yeah.
And it is bizarre behaviour in the lead up to a final. I really like Maurizio Sarri. I think he's brought a great character to the league. But it is really strange to be coming out with these comments in the lead up to a huge game. Obviously the build-up hasn't been great. He's pissed off because of the game they had to play in the States as well. Where Loftus-Cheek got injured.
Yeah.
So like it's been a bit of a disaster from his point of view, but it still points to me like that they've managed to salvage a top 4 position. This points to me as part of the narrative where Chelsea will end up getting the job done anyway.
Yeah. Do you know what you're saying there? You find it bizarre that he's talking about his sacking, the lead up to it from a personal point of view. But managers now, I think that they are more than aware of the power of a big game and how they can put themselves out there. Look at Pochettino in the lead up to the Champions League final over the last couple of weeks. He's basically saying, look, I could walk away. If I win the Champions League, I'm gone. Essentially what he's saying. It just puts him in a position of power around these big games, and Sarri knows himself. I mean, it's obviously not on the scale of the Champions League, but if they were to win a trophy and he was to do it himself, then I could see him gone. I could see him gone, yeah.
Do you actually equate that to Pochettino's situation? Because for me, Pochettino is in a real position of power because he's taken Spurs to their greatest ever season in Europe.
Yeah.
Whereas Maurizio Sarri is with a team that won the Champions League 7 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, you say across the course of this season, something changed dramatically around Christmas time, just into the new year, when all of a sudden these comments were coming out from more regularly, talked about not being able to control the players. What was his exact comment around the fact is that he couldn't motivate the players. That's what he said, didn't he? Couldn't motivate. He was finding it difficult to motivate this squad of players. When you start to say things like that, you know the writing's on the wall, and this has been coming out all too regularly now, I think.
Yeah, for sure. The Irish Daily Mail this morning leads with blue bottle. Gavin says his Dubs have grit to drive for 5. Jim Gavin was in the media there yesterday, and he says it's about how you process context. I'm very conscious it is a sport. In my career, I've got a very broad view of the world. I can put things in context. So he's not getting too carried away by the idea of the drive for 5. Rugby Chiefs up ante to align World Game then, says Chris Foyt's an exclusive here in the Daily Mail. They've pledged an extra €1.14 billion in a desperate bid to salvage their nations championship concept and avert the threat of the Six Nations doing their own separate rights deal. So that's kind of moving with a bit of momentum over the last couple of days. And the picture there at the back of the Irish Daily Mail, as you can see, is Luke O'Connell. The question Philip Quinn asks is Luca set to bloom all for his Irish gran? Do you cap him? For the sake of it, it's Gibraltar. You don't know whether or not this guy is going to become the next Declan Rice. I hate to bring that word up around you, Kev, but...
Well, no, I was listening to you and Jay yesterday talking about it. In my opinion, definitely not. Definitely not cap him. And I wouldn't have capped Declan Rice. I heard Jay was talking about it yesterday. It was interesting. He's saying, if we'd have capped him, it would have been fine. No issues at all. But he still would have had the thoughts that he's had of actually going to play for another country. So why would you want to cap him in the first place? He shouldn't have played for us at senior international level. At least Jack Grealish did the right thing in distancing himself from being selected from the squad leading into the senior international setup. So no, certainly not cap him. No, unless he goes into the squad and Mick is so impressed with him, and you can't not have him on the bench or not have him involved in the 2 games. Certainly the Gibraltar game makes much more of an attractive game to cap him in. But if he's not up to it, and he's not necessarily. He's in for a future 2 years down the line, 2 or 3 years down the line. You keep him for 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. Certainly, no, definitely not cap him, no.
The good news is that he will, as the headline suggests, risk the wrath of his grandmother should he ever change allegiances.
Well, that's the headline in the Sun as well. We'll probably be able to come back to it.
If you're going to the Sun here, you've got to start with the Maurizio Sarri.
Yeah, well, that's the one. No, I will. Yeah, I will.
What is the Maurizio Sarri headline?
Baku sack and crack. I know you're fond of a back sack and crack on yourself, aren't you? So. But yeah, you're very fond of a headline. I always say it all the time. You love the old headline, but that's the one. Of course, it's on Sarri again, but that's the one on Luca O'Connell again. Granny wouldn't speak to me if I were to ever turn me back on it as well. An interesting one just on Dermot Connolly as well. Colin Moran believes that Dublin should move on from Dermot Connolly now. That's it. End it now. Get rid of it. Get rid of the story around that. That's for another day, I suppose, as well. But certainly on Luca O'Connell, I don't know. It's getting to the stage now where we're creating such a furore simply with what's happened around Grealish and particularly Declan Rice. I don't know. In my head, no, don't just have him in the squad, bring him in, great. Which it was more beneficial for Declan Rice when they got him in a few years ago when they were down in Cork, when they were down at Photo Island when he was training. I heard the suggestion was that we should have capped him against Moldova. Absolutely no chance. No way should we have capped him in that Moldova game because of the thoughts that he was having further down the line. He felt and listened to his quotes. I'm English. Listen to his accent. He's English, Eoin. So there you go. That's what he said, didn't he?
Well, it makes a very valid point, Kev.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm not sure. It is kind of it's a huge amount of revisionism saying that we should have capped him against Moldova, and you hate bringing this back up again, but
I know, but a lot
of people would agree with that idea.
This story will continue to go because we're going to get more and more of this situation, aren't we? Like Luca O'Connell is saying, if he goes into the squad and he's so impressive around the senior international players, and Mick's like, God, I can't not have him. I had it myself. I mean, I was a little bit older than Luca O'Connell. I was 20 when I got into the senior squad. And I played in Owen Hand's testimonial at, I think it was it wasn't at Richmond Park. Was it at Tolka Park, I think it was. And I played in this game against the League of Ireland Select, and it just went really well, and Mick was like, I've got to put him in the side. And Mick probably at that stage wasn't necessarily thinking of starting me in the Iceland game in '97, but because I'd impressed in training, because I'd impressed in that game, he puts you in. So it's up to him. And then the decision maybe for him further down the line is that, look, do I want to be part of this setup? Do I want to be part of the Irish international setup? Mick McCarthy, the rest of the side, am I Irish? Do I feel Irish or not? That's the decision for him to make further down the line.
Well, hopefully he continues to live in fear of his grandmother, who turns out to be a top talent. The Racing Post leads on the back page anyway with the darts. Time to wade in, rock solid 15-2 shot, has what it takes to go all the way at the O2. But an interesting one here beside it. Guardiola backed to make move to Juventus. So Dan Childs is writing that Pep Guardiola's stock is at an all-time high, obviously after what's happened over the last couple of weeks. But he's emerged as a reported target for Juventus, who are seeking a replacement for Massimiliano Allegri. So Juve's pulling power was demonstrated last summer, obviously when they got Ronaldo. And according to the odds here that Racing Post are reporting, Pep Guardiola has gone down to as short as 4-6, but is still available at 10-3 with some bookmakers to become Juventus manager. They're extremely short odds. Like, so somebody
a lot of money's been ploughed onto him, hasn't he? That's
exactly. Somebody believes something, or somebody knows something.
Yeah,
that would be a big shock, I would say.
It will be a massive shock, but when we've looked at the last couple of weeks and what he's been saying around the financial fair play and what's been suggested about him and where's his money being paid from, and his reaction to that question that was put to him from Rob Harris after the cup final, it wouldn't surprise me. It certainly wouldn't surprise me. He still thinks, I feel in his head, and what he's spoken about over the last year, is he wants to win a Champions League with Man City. But with what's happening in there at City and the scrutiny that club's under, it certainly wouldn't surprise me, no.
He probably feels he isn't getting the credit he deserves, or the club isn't getting the credit it deserves.
Well, that's definitely been the case. That was the suggestion from him after the cup final. Certainly in the aftermath, immediately in his post-match press conference, when he was having to address things that he didn't want to address. Look, the club had won the treble. No club in the history of English football has ever won a domestic treble before, and he's then been asked questions on where his money's coming from, what the club's, and he's been asked that constantly over the last while, hasn't he, on the financial scrutiny that the club's been under. And he may feel as though it might be time to step away from it, just to save me this line of ongoing questioning further on.
You got the Telegraph. Cricket, I think, is the story.
Again, pretty much. I mean, it's pretty much along the lines of back me or sack me again for Chelsea. Cricket. Are we allowed to talk about cricket here? Yeah.
Go for it. Well, you've got 20 minutes to go on a monologue.
Look who's back. This is Smith and Warner. This is the two lads that were involved in the ball tampering scandal a few years ago. So if you remember that one,
last year only, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, last year. Sorry, back from the bans now. So they're back in for. I think is it the World Cup this summer? I think it is in England, isn't it?
Sure.
You're the man for the cricket, Owen. You know.
The Heralds inside the back page. They lead with Jim Gavin's press conference yesterday, or his media event yesterday, I should say. Gavin's flight plan leaves no room for autopilot, and Frank Roach is writing, stagnation once again as Offaly try to avoid dropping to new low. Jim Gavin doing the rounds yesterday at that aviation event, probably the last media event. Obviously they're playing this weekend.
I've got the Mirror as well here, Soren, as well. The interesting one, pretty much around Sarri again, back me or sack me, but there's one, Raheem Sterling as well, he's over in New York at the moment. He's been talking at a conference over there, but he's talking on the lines if teams must be docked points or kicked out of competitions for racism, or any sort of racism at matches as well. So this is an ongoing one that we're going to hear a lot more about. But Raheem Sterling is speaking very well around the subject at the moment.
Definitely is. The Irish Examiner goes with Luca Connell. Luca the Irish is their headline. Bolton boy Connell will commit if Mick makes the call. Tommy Martin is asking the question, has European football become too big for UEFA to control? And the Flight for Five, how aviation helped Jim Gavin build a culture that accepts humans make mistakes. And finally, you've got The Guardian. Yeah,
The Guardian again, back or bust around Sarri again, and it's the Australian cricket story as well. David Warner and Steve Smith back playing in England for the first time since the bans. So, yeah.
Let's have a look at Ireland training in Portugal recently. Pretty jealous of all the journalists and the players, of course, down there at the moment.
Yeah, I've been following a few, following Dan McDonnell on Instagram, if anyone sees Dan on Instagram.
Working hard.
Yeah, he likes to put a little story of, the sunshine and things like that. There's Robbie Keane involved as well. Did Robbie just make it? Yeah, Robbie's probably still the best player there, I would think, as well.
How quickly does your touch go after...
I was playing...
You still have it, do you?
I was playing football yesterday, honestly. It's just your knack. I was so tired.
Yeah.
Every single time I play now, my ankle, my calf, hamstring, something goes, and that all probably stems from my back. So it's difficult. I think because you're not as fit, everything seems to fall apart around that.
But the touch is there still, to a certain extent.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's certainly those little games, little skill games like that. They'll be fine for Robbie anyway.
We want to play a game this morning, Kev. It's around the transfer rumours over the past couple of days. We want to break these all down, distill them, and just get this all done over the course of 10 minutes. We're going to go through a few transfer rumours.
Yeah.
We're going to get you to tell us whether they're a good idea, whether they're a bad idea, and the legitimacy rating out of 10 in terms of whether or not they might happen. Before that, though, there's just a transfer story.
There's that one story that I want to say. It's actually in the inside of the Sun today. It's actually a story from Neil Custis in the Sun, just regarding Man United's new transfer policy, what they're going to put in place. Man United are putting together a committee of ex-players to help identify targets. They're looking to try. Darren Fletcher's, he's expected to be joining that committee. Rio Ferdinand's another one that's been muted as joining that committee as well. They're looking for the United DNA fit. That's what they're looking at. It's garbage, isn't it, really? But there you go. So that's an interesting one with United. United's policy has changed so much over the years. They've gone from signing the superstars or the high earners, massive wages, massive transfer fees. Now they're looking at the players that's going to fit into the Manchester United DNA. Or
the DNA, they have the little scientific ladder just to find out whether or not they have that specific science. I don't know. Let's get into a few of these, because Manchester United are, without question, the most linked to players in this entire list. So we're going to get you to rate these. So the first...
I haven't seen these, by the way, as well, so it's even better. So go on.
The first transfer rumour we have is from the Daily Record. So Manchester United are working on a deal to sign midfielder Ivan Rakitic, but Barcelona want €55 million for the Croatia international. Good idea, bad idea, will it happen?
I think that's a good idea, but if you're paying 55 million, it's a lot. How old's Rakitic now? Must be
31.
31. It's a massive deal for a player that you're probably going to get 3 years out of, isn't it? But United are in that position. Nathan was on the other week, and Nathan was saying that United should sign João Moutinho. He's 32, but just the experience that he would bring. I think they need someone of that ilk. I think that's a good idea if the price was right. 50 odd million seems a bit too steep for me at his age.
Out of 10, how legitimate?
I'd say they'd be in for him. How legitimate? I'd say that could be 7 or an 8. That.
Oh.
I'd say so, yeah, because of the calibre of players that they need to be bringing into that club, yeah.
We'll give it a 7.5, split the difference. So Manchester United are to make an opening £25 million bid for Crystal Palace fullback Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but the Eagles want £50 million for the Englishman, says the English.
I'd say that's a 10.
Evening Standard.
Highly likely that will happen.
Good idea?
Good idea, yeah.
Wow, okay. We're off to a great start here, Kev.
Yeah.
These aren't just rumours, these are obviously definitely going to happen. Manchester United are ready to make a formal offer for Newcastle midfielder Sean Longstaff, sources have told ESPN FC.
Yeah, good player. It's still too early in my mind. He's not played enough football, I think, certainly at the top level. But the games that I've seen him play, I saw him play Man City earlier on this season. Very good footballer, technically very good. He's actually Alan Thompson's nephew.
Is he?
Ex-England, Celtic, Newcastle midfielder, Bolton midfielder. So, no, I'd say it's too early for that one. I'd be giving that a low mark.
Bad idea? Legitimacy?
Bad idea now. 3 or 4, I'd say. Maybe,
3 or 4, so that's nonsense, ESPN. Manchester United, according to the Daily Mail, will promote Sergio Romero instead of spending big on a new goalkeeper if David De Gea leaves Old Trafford this summer.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me. I'd say...
So a high legitimacy rating?
Yeah, 7. I'd give it like a 7.
Good idea or bad idea?
Wouldn't be the worst idea. He's done well when he's played. You probably judge him when he's probably plays 20, 30 games consecutively, because we've not seen him play that. So that you might be playing this back after he's played 20, 30 games when he's had a shock and he's had a nightmare. You'd be actually questioning my legitimacy. From when I've seen him play for Argentina, he's a good goalkeeper, yeah.
This is the big one. We'll see how good your exotic knowledge is of Wunderkins. United are ready to meet Benfica attacking midfielder João Felix's £105 million release clause, although they could face competition from Real Madrid for the 19-year-old Portuguese. Daily Record.
Well, given the position that United are in now, I'd say no. But he's a player. He is a hell of a player.
So good idea, but low legitimacy rating we're talking.
Great idea. 10 for idea, but legitimacy now, I'd say 2.
2.
Yeah, he's going to a Champions League club, him.
It's almost jarring when you say that he's got to go to a Champions League club, and it's like we're talking about Manchester United here. It does kind of feel weird. Antonio Conte will make a move to sign Belgium striker Romelu Lukaku from Manchester United once he is appointed.
Sorry, who's signing Lukaku? Who?
Inter Milan.
Inter Milan.
But Antonio Conte is the man linked with him.
Yeah.
Once he's appointed as manager with Inter, he's going to sign Lukaku. The Times are reporting.
Yeah, I could see that.
Good idea?
Yeah. He wanted to sign him, didn't he? He was his number one target when he was at before he went to United. So very good idea. I think he's going to go because he's not been happy, he's not been playing. That'll be highly likely. He's talked about going to Italy as well, 9 or a 10 there. Yeah, I could see that happening.
Good idea for United to sell?
Yeah, I think so.
Newcastle, according to The Sun, could be interested in signing 31-year-old Spain midfielder Juan Mata, who is out of contract at Manchester United. Ongoing Barcelona talk, and Manchester United are reported to be trying to keep him.
What do you mean, to keep him to United or go? Which one do you want there?
Newcastle. Let's go with the Newcastle angle. Should they sign Juan Mata?
Newcastle definitely should sign him.
It's a great idea.
Benitez, we know Benitez got the best out of him at Chelsea as well. It'd be a great idea if Chelsea could get him in. If he's going to go back to Spain and Barcelona, that seems a no-brainer in my head. But if Newcastle can get him done, but it looks as though he's going to be gone. United, he's probably served his time there. I think if United are looking to play a different brand of football, or a brand of football that's really conducive to high energy, real pace, counter-attacking football, I'm not so sure that Mata's the man really to play in that sort of side. So I think he'd be gone. Newcastle would be a great signing, more likely to Barcelona or certainly back to Spain.
But a good idea for United to sell.
Good idea, yeah, I think so. I think he's served his time there now.
Right, let's go to Pogba. He's going to be offered, according to ESPN, he's going to be offered the Manchester United captaincy in an effort to convince him to stay at Old Trafford. It's reported that if he goes, Manchester United want €160 million. So let's go with the good idea, bad idea on giving Pogba the captaincy in order to make him happy and to keep him.
No, I don't think so. The reason why is he was vice captain at the start of the season, and then Mourinho said that he wasn't going to be captain again for United. That's with his attitude. You know, if you're playing for a football club, your attitude has got to be spot on every single day. As in professional football now, because every player is like that, or majority, 99% of footballers have the right attitude every single day in training. If his attitude hasn't been right on the training ground around the club for a long time, then no way should he be considered for captain material. In relation to 160, if you can get 160 million, I think you could actually reinvest that in a much better way than having Pogba in your side, I think. Yeah, Pogba's he's a great player, brilliant footballer, we know that, but he hasn't produced it consistently enough, and it seems to me like he's not been the right fit since he's gone back into United.
This might be one for Curtis Fleming later on, but the Hartlepool Mail are reporting that former Argentina striker Gabriel Batistuta, who has yet to manage a senior professional team, is believed to have expressed an interest in the vacant managerial role at Middlesbrough. Yeah,
that'll be an interesting one. Won't it? Batistuta, what a player he was. You won't remember Batistuta, really, do you? Batistuta, what a player, what a striker he was. I used to love him. Class, absolute class act. We're seeing this thing now across the world. Players have to cut the teeth in somewhere. He wouldn't necessarily even consider Middlesbrough probably when he's come to the end of his playing career, the level that he was at, thinking if he was going to go down the role of coaching, he'd certainly be considered for a much bigger job than Middlesbrough. But that's where he's at, and it'd certainly be would it be an exotic one? Is that what you're looking there? Another exotic? You mentioned exotic earlier on. It'd be a massive coup for Middlesbrough if they was getting him in. But considering that Middlesbrough in the last year of the parachute payments, they're having to make dramatic cuts across the club, Middlesbrough at the moment as well. So if that is the case for Middlesbrough, what would it take to get Batistuta in? He wouldn't be coming in cheap, would he?
We've got a couple of good ones coming up. This one I'm particularly interested in. Bayern Munich are increasingly confident that they will sign Germany forward Leroy Sané from Manchester City this summer, according to the Mirror.
Great signing for Bayern Munich if they were to get him in.
Good idea.
Great idea for them. I wouldn't let him go if I was City. Simply because he's so different from what they have. Like, I understand Mahrez was playing against Brighton in that last game of the season when he scored. Sides dropped deep against you. He's a better, probably, footballer to actually play in front of defences, Mahrez. Whereas the pace that Sané's got, the penetration that he's going to bring, his ability to run in behind defenders, I wouldn't let him go if I was Man City, no.
So the legitimacy rating on this one is?
I'd say that's quite high. Because
you think he will go?
If he could, I think Germany's biggest club, going back home to Germany, yeah, I'd say that's quite high, 8 or 9 for him, yeah, definitely.
From the Mirror again, Atletico Madrid and Napoli are interested in signing Tottenham's England international right-back, Kieran Trippier.
Oh, that's a good deal.
For Trippier?
Yeah, great for him, wouldn't it? I mean, he has the technical ability that could certainly cut it in one of the top European leagues, definitely. For him to go in, I don't even know who Napoli's right back is now as well. But that'd be a great signing for him, or great move for him if he were to go there. So yeah, legitimacy rating, would Tottenham let him go? don't know. I'd be sitting on the fence a little bit on that one. Probably a 5 or a 6, simply because it'd be great for him if he was going to go. But I doubt, given the position that Tottenham are in, they can't afford to really let anybody go because there's going to be no real money available to go for the big signings.
The last transfer rumour we have, and it's another exotic one, Kev. Wolves are leading the chase to sign £30 million rated Malian striker Moussa Marega from Porto. You would have seen a bit of him in the Champions League.
Quite a lot of him. But did he score 6-7 goals a season before? And he caused Liverpool a lot of problems in certainly the first game. Liverpool played the first game at Anfield, didn't they? Went out to Porto for the second leg, and he's a handful. He's a handful. He's not necessarily the best looking of players when he gets behind. If you know, like in terms of aesthetic, when you're watching a footballer, but he's awkward. He's difficult to play against. He's strong, quick. Yeah, I could see that one. Definitely see that one. Yeah, legitimate rating. It depends again, deal-wise, money-wise. What would it take? His record this season's actually been quite good. So
£30 million looks like a decent enough
good
price.
Deal. Good deal. Given what the money that goes around for strikers now, that'd be a good deal. That, yeah.
Good stuff, Kev. That concludes.
There you go.
Good idea, bad idea.
Yeah, we're going to get much more of that, aren't we?
Just one more thing, just in terms of transfer rumours, is the whole Gareth Bale situation. So there was this poll that was done online, and more than 330,000 Real Madrid fans voted in a poll on players' performances in the season gone by, with 92% giving Gareth Bale a fail. They don't like him.
No, they don't.
What do they do with him?
Well, what is his contract worth? He's saying €350,000 a week after tax.
After tax, yeah.
After tax, yeah. Huge money that he's on. It's a massive problem for Real Madrid, the deal that they've given him. I still think Gareth Bale's class. I'd love to see him back in the Premier League personally, but he sat there on a 3-year contract. I mean, unless Real Madrid pay him big bucks, and I think his agent said that. I mean, his agent was embarrassing when he spoke at the races recently. Did you see that interview that he did? That in my head was everything that's wrong about modern day football, that interview. But it's going to take a massive payoff to get Bale off the books there, and there's a potential for him to move to United, to Tottenham. Talking about going back on loan. I could see that happening. I could see it happening, but I love Bale. I think Bale's top class player.
It's almost a situation where somebody just has to take half the wages, or even less than half the wages, and just get him out of the club for a time.
Well, it's not him taking. It's not. Yeah, exactly. He'll still get paid. Real Madrid are going to have to pay him, but exactly. Real Madrid are going to have to take the hit, where they're still going to be paying him 100.
Probably better for squad mentality or squad chemistry, really, isn't it?
To get him off the books.
We asked you before we came on air what was the craziest summer of your upheaval, and what are you thinking in that in terms of being in a club where there are moving parts everywhere around you?
Yeah, looking back, it would have to be Sunderland, because there was a few summers of maybe upheaval. Hull, we had a lot of upheaval at Hull. We got relegated actually there, but I was the back end of my career then. I was still early days of playing Premier League football. We got relegated from the Premier League at Sunderland, and it's just it's the disconnection, I think, from everybody at the club. All of a sudden, everyone's job at the club, not necessarily the players' contracts are protected, but everybody at the club, whether that be the people on the door that's welcoming into the training ground, people even around the football stadium itself, day-to-day, match day, everyone's job is on the line because there's so many redundancies that's made across a club. So you feel that little bit of pressure from the people that you've really grown to know over a number of years are going to be leaving. They're going to be gone, and I think you take that on board a little bit as well. You take that their lives are responsible for what you do on the pitch. It's not necessarily, people don't necessarily, see that sort of side of it, but that was certainly the case at Sunderland, because we had such a good, tight club around us, not just the playing staff and the coaching staff, it was the staff at the football club. And that was a big thing, I think, that happened there. So there's so much upheaval around the club there. But it happened at Hull as well, where actually, at Hull, I didn't actually have a relegation clause, but I took actually a pay cut when we got relegated from at Hull, yeah.
It's interesting looking at this. Like you're talking about a dozen players at least who went out the transfer window before September of 2003, and then you leave for Everton in September 2003.
Done a bit of homework there, good.
Is there ever? Well, it's actually Tommy outside who printed all this off.
No, we had a lot of leave. I mean, we at the time, obviously. We had, I think Niall had just gone. Niall Quinn had left because he left around Howard Wilkinson time. But we had really good players like Kevin Phillips, Gavin McCann, who was linked with moves away, Thomas Sorensen, Jody Craddock, people who were still interested in other clubs. Myself as well. Obviously, I could have gone to Southampton quite early on that summer.
These all leave. All the players you mentioned there are gone. So do you get to September and think to yourself, I got to get out the door here. Does that actually impact your thinking?
Well, I was saying today, Southampton came in, so Mick McCarthy was in at the club at the time, and we were away pre-season, and Mick came to me and said, look, Southampton have bid, we've accepted a bid for you, you'll be gone. I think Gordon Strachan was manager at Southampton. And for some reason, it never happened. I don't really know what happened. I think they might have been too far off on the fee that Sunderland wanted and what Southampton were prepared to pay. So the season starts. So we played the opening games of the season. We actually lost the first game. I can't remember, Millwall maybe, I think it was. We had Millwall, Preston and Bradford. My last game for Sunderland was against Bradford away. So you're into the next season, you're thinking, right, that's it. And I would have been quite happy to carry on playing under Mick, but Mick knew that I wanted to leave. And then Everton came in last minute. They were initially wanting to take me on loan. It wasn't going to happen. And then eventually Mick said, you're not taking him on loan. You either do the deal or you're not having him. And then last minute the deal was done, because that was actually the first year that the transfer window came in. The first season it came in over that summer. And you knew for a fact that if you stayed beyond September, then that summer in particular, you couldn't move. So luckily enough for me, I went around the bank holiday, Monday, Tuesday, whenever it was, when that transfer window had first come into place.
What do you think would have happened if you had stayed with Sunderland that season?
Well, they hit the playoffs that year. I don't know. I'd like to think we'd have got promoted. I'd like to think that would have been the case, that we had a good side still at Sunderland. Mick was a tremendous manager, a brilliant manager, good staff around him. The recruitment that he was implementing, or people that he was bringing into the club at that time as well, would have certainly kicked the club on going forward. So I'd like to think we'd have got promoted, yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll come back to that perhaps later on. But thanks for all your transfer insight. Good idea, bad idea. We'll be making a return next week. We are turning to your beloved Mayo, though. They're up against Roscommon and Castlebar at 7 o'clock this Saturday. Lee McHale, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Eoin. How are you?
Very well, thanks. So we'll start with Mayo. We'll get into Roscommon in just a moment. Obviously, a fantastic league campaign for Mayo. The result that everybody expected, really, in New York a few weeks back. But the question, I guess, over this is, how many times can you go to the well? How many times can this team really get back to the pitch that they brought, say, under peak Horan or under peak Rochford, and indeed under Holmes and Kennelly? Can they do it again this year in terms of getting to that level?
I think they can, Owen, because one of the main reasons is the influx of young players that have come in. I remember in my time in 96 and 97, once the young players come in, you have some jaded players. They're mentally fatigued, just as you said yourself, going to the well so many times trying to win that elusive All-Ireland final. But when you bring in the likes of young Rowan and Tracy and these guys, they give all the veteran players a new lease of life, to give them some energy and some enthusiasm. And I think we saw that in the league. I think the mix is very, very good on now at the moment. You've like three tiers of players. You have the really young guys, like the fellas I've mentioned. Then you have Jeremy O'Connor and the likes of Paddy Durkin, exceptional players in their early 20s. And then of course you've got Keith Higgins, Andy Moore, Ed Moshe, Lee Keegan, Colin Boyle, the leaders of the team. So what I've seen this year, especially from the young fellas, is very, very impressive. I think there's massive strength in depth there, up there now with the Tyrones, the Currys, and the Dublins, of course. And that would give me great optimism for the summer, because I think the mix is as good now as it's been in a long, long time.
Liam, given what happened in that Kildare game last year and the scrutiny that probably the team was under, how important was it for James Horan, when going in, to introduce all these younger players? Because as Owen touched on there about the side has kind of moved on over the years with the similar players that have played for the last 3 or 4 seasons now without any real introduction of new blood. How important was it for the introduction of those new players?
Well, you know yourself, Kevin, when a couple of new good players come into the team, especially a team that's been through so much, it gives everybody a massive lift. I remember it happening in my career when I was 31, 32, and 96, 97. All those young lads coming in and say, oh my God, like I thought this was all over, but maybe it's not. These guys can really bring us on, So you've got massive enthusiasm, you've got massive energy, and that can do nothing but lift the veteran players. And I think that's what we saw, Kevin, this year in the league, especially in the latter part of the league, in the league final. The energy and the enthusiasm that came from the young players. And the amazing thing, there's 4 or 5 of them there that seem to be ready to go. There doesn't seem to be a 2 or 3 year waiting period. Now, I know things are going to get harder starting on Saturday evening, but once the energy now and the competitiveness in these in-house games, I believe, are absolutely unbelievable, because the 35, 36 players now pushing for places, and you have 4 or 5 all-star vets veterans that are struggling to get minutes now, and that has to develop a real strength and a real competitiveness in the group. And when you get to a stage where your in-house games are as tough as your championship matches, then you're in a really good place. And I believe that's what's been happening with Mayo for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
It's interesting that you bring up your team of the mid to late 90s, Liam, because I think there are a lot more parallels than people believe there, and you've outlined a lot of them yourself. And the question that's been asked of Mayo, especially since the end of the first James Horn era, since their dominance in Connacht has waned a little bit, is should Mayo be going for Connacht a little bit more to get through the front door? And ultimately, if there was a back door in the late 90s, you don't know how that Mayo team would have turned out, say, in 98 and 2000 or whatever it may have been. Like, in terms of those parallels, like, I know it was my question at the start as well, just how big a mental toll is it to actually keep going back and trying to get through the front door? So that means peaking earlier in the season.
Yeah, and it all depends on who you get early. If you get a Roscommon or a Galway early, you're going to have to be at, like, as you said, peak performance, and that takes its toll for sure. Because if you win your Connacht title and get all the way to August, September, it's very hard to keep that going. You're not going to be able to peak for the whole summer. So that's a very difficult thing to do. But the way things are going now with the qualifiers, it takes a small little bit of pressure off. It's not a must-win game. Whoever wins or whoever loses on Saturday is going to get another shot at it. But I would imagine that Mayo, after not winning a Connacht title in 3 years under James Horn this year, they'll be very keen on to get that Connacht title back. I think a league title is very impressive and very welcoming. I think a Connacht title is a must, and then circle the wagons, take a couple of days off, and then take on the Super 8s with that strength and depth that we talked about. But I think this Mayo team now will have nothing else in their minds but winning on Saturday night and getting into a Connacht final and getting the crack at Galway.
We were thinking before coming on air about some of your great encounters as a Mayo player against Roscommon, and this year is the 30th anniversary of that dogfight, I think it's fair to say, in Castlebar. It was a draw on that one. You got the job done in the replay and then got back to an All-Ireland final for the first time since 1951. 1989, 30 years ago, what do you remember of that year, Liam, and the hope around Mayo football at the time?
Well, it was I was only a little, I think I was 22 or 23 at the time, and it was like a whirlwind for me, really roller coaster ride. My father died the day of that drawing match, and I had to kind of get myself together and get ready for the replay. So like that was a very tough time for me personally, but my teammates all rallied around me. John O'Mahony rallied around me, and we got through that Connacht final, and we're delighted to do that. But we had a massive win against Tyrone in the semi-finals, and then on after that, it kind of went. The fans went crazy, and we had great difficulty in trying to keep a lid on it. And we, even though we performed well against Cork, that was a great Cork team led by Larry Tompkins and Shea Fahy and Paul McGrath, but we just couldn't get it done. I think we threw that away, even though they were as good as they were, and they'd lost to Meath in the two previous All Irelands. We had some great opportunities. I remember at the end of that game to win it, and we just fell short. And obviously, we thought, we'd be back the following year, but like what we talked about earlier on, we got Galway in the first round. We were we were a little bit off, and I think they fell by a point in 90. And then I think there was a lot of veteran players then going into their 30s at that stage. That team broke up shortly after that. So that was a pity. It'd be one of my big regrets. I really felt that we had a great chance of winning that, and we didn't do it. And I suppose the rest is history.
Yeah, it is. When you look back on that year, it is kind of the start of what has become an incredible journey, as much as there has been heartache on the pitch of this Mayo team, of the cult of the Mayo supporters especially. 89 really was the start of something, Liam, I think it's fair to say. And like you mentioned, the grief you were going through at the time, I guess being in the middle of it as well gave you the realisation that there was something special going on, given the arm around your shoulder that was provided by John O'Mahony and I'm sure a lot of your teammates.
Oh yeah, like the support was unbelievable, and I felt I was a basketball player on, and I wasn't sure how much I really loved the game of Gaelic and how much I loved playing for Mayo. And after that year, I realised, and wanted to really put as much of an effort in as I could to help the team.
We've lost Liam McHale there. We'll get him back in just a moment. I presume he was talking about 89.
I actually wanted to ask him about where Connacht football is in general at the moment, certainly around Roscommon as well, going into this weekend as well. How strong does he see Roscommon? Where does he see this game going as well? Because I think there's Certainly with Galway, the way that they're playing, I'm not too sure we can take too much out of their win against Sligo last weekend as well, but it's an interesting time, I think.
Yeah, Roscommon are really impressive against Leitrim in the first round.
Very, very impressed. It was I'd say it was a comfortable enough win. They wouldn't necessarily see it as that, but they made it look comfortable with how they played. So Roscommon were very impressive in that game against Leitrim, yeah.
Yeah, and like obviously you mentioned that like all-day performance against Sligo. I was going to say it's kind of hard to know what sort of performance to read into too much, but I think maybe we got carried away with actually the importance of Ruislip and how tough it is to actually go there, that perhaps them just getting over the line was the most important thing.
Yeah.
We do have Liam McHale back, and we should kind of, I guess, just focus our attention really on kind of more of the last couple of years. James Horn I don't think he's lost a game at all in the Connacht Championship. Liam obviously won down this year. The landscape though is hugely different to how it was 5 years ago since his last stint as Mayo boss. Like, has his stamp on the team this time around, granted we've only got the league and one championship game to judge it on, has that stamp been quite different to how it was in 2014?
Well, I think all the veteran players want to be delighted that that James is back. He's the guy that they wanted, I think, all along, and that coupled with the influx of young players coming in has everybody playing well and playing with a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm, as I said earlier. So, the team has played very well. I prefer the way they play now than they did, say, 5 or 6 years ago. They're not as attritional when they have the ball. They don't take it into the tackle as much. They're playing with a lot more pace and a lot more spacing, and that comes down to some of the younger lads as well. This young Rowan kid in the middle of the field looks like he's the real deal. So I think in games gone by, the team was worn out 4 or 5 years ago, worn out with 10, 15 minutes to go, especially against the Tyrones and the Dublins of this world. So I think they're a lot smarter now. I think they play with a little bit more ball movement, a little more pace, and that makes them more difficult to defend. And obviously they're huge around the middle of the field still. They can really be physical with teams, and even though their backs are getting older, their backs are still very, very good, very tenacious, and defend very well as a unit. So it's similar, but I think it's a little bit more polished now and a little bit more, it's certainly a good bit better offensively, I think.
Just on Matthew Moran there, we look back at last summer and the Tom Parsons and Seamie O'Shea injury. A lot of people would rightfully say that actually scuppered their chance of getting back into the Super 8s or getting into the initial Super 8s. In a strange way, though, it's allowed Mayo to adapt or to find a new midfield partnership, and I think it's fair to say Ruan and Aidan O'Shea were the midfield partnership of the spring. What has Ruan done to allow Mayo to get the best out of Aidan O'Shea in that position?
Well, young Ruan, he doesn't get rattled, it seems to me. No matter what position he finds himself in, he just seems to be able to be composed and make the right decision a lot of the times, And I think Aidan likes playing midfield, it's probably his natural position. He doesn't like playing with his back to the goal. I would have said in the past that he would be unmarkable because of his size and because of his skill set, especially with his left foot, that he'd be unmarkable on the edge of the square. There's not too many full backs that could mark him, but it's all about getting the players in their favourite positions as much as possible, and then you have happy players. But as the season goes on, and hopefully Mayo get into Super 8, it's going to get a lot more difficult because defending these top teams takes a lot of energy out of you, and you need a lot of athleticism around the middle of the field, especially playing in Croke Park in the Super 8. So that's going to take a toll on the lads as well, especially Aidan. So he needs to be in great shape and really be testing that GPS to, especially defensively now, to get the best out of the Mayo team, because our midfield partnership this year in the league has been very, very strong, and our half back line is always strong. For half forward line is always athletic and strong, and that's the springboard to being able to put pressure on top class keepers like Cluxton on the kickouts, and that gets a lot of scores from Mayo when they can do that. Yeah,
Aidan O'Shea actually did look in great shape across the league campaign, I thought anyway. It certainly looked to me like he'd lost a bit of weight, I think, across this summer, so across the winter, should I say, going into the spring, so I think that was a good thing. But Liam, I wanted to ask you particularly around this game this week and the Roscommon game. Roscommon were very impressive in beating Leitrim. Very, very good performance. Comfortable enough, I think you probably look at it overall, but it was the way, the manner in which they got the job done. How do you view this game this weekend then?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game, Kevin. I think Leitrim went into that game 2 weeks ago expecting to be competitive, maybe even expecting to win after the great Division 4 campaign they had, and they were really Roscommon disposed of them very easily, scoring 3 goals, I believe, if memory serves me correctly. Shane Killorn scoring 2 of them. So Roscommon will be coming with lots of enthusiasm, lots of confidence. Despite the tough league campaign, I can't see Roscommon. Obviously, I know the lads very well, and I hope it's a good game. I think it'll be competitive for 3 quarters, but I think in the 4th quarter, Mayo's physical power and strength around the middle of the field, and the fact that they'll be bringing on all-star footballers in the last 15-20 minutes as subs will swing it in Mayo's favour, and I think Mayo will pull away in the end.
From your time with Roscommon, was your sense at the end that there was a kind of an idea of unfinished business around this team, because there was clear improvements during your involvement there? Could there have been another bit of improvement, and are they going to make that stride forward this year?
Yeah, well, I have to say now, I enjoyed every minute of working with the lads. There's a lot of really good footballers there, Jeremy Bertha, Enda Smith, Niall Kilroy, Tiger Rourke, just to name a few, and they're very ambitious and they're very keen. I have one major regret. Roscommon should have won 3 Connacht titles in a row. The first year, the drawn game in Salt Hill against Galway got hammered in the replay in Castlebar. Won it the year after, and last year again scored the penalty. Conor Devaney to put Roscommon a point up, and then conceded 2 or 3 points. And I felt that game was kind of thrown away as well. So the amazing thing is that Roscommon were in the last 3 Connacht finals, won 1 and probably should have won the other 2 as well. So again, they've been through a lot. They're more than Mayo, but not at the same level. They've been through an awful lot, lads, and they've been getting tougher and stronger as the years have been going on. And they're all, most of the key players now are 27, 28, getting up there and getting bigger and getting a little bit more used to these types of big games. Having said that, I go back to what I say. I think this Mayo team is in a great place. I think the strength and depth has never been as good. And I think that the fact that power in the middle of the field and the calibre of player that Mayo are going to be bringing on the last 20-25 minutes, I don't think Roscommon have that. And I think because of that, I think Mayo will pull away in the end.
In terms of Anthony Cunningham going into the role, he obviously knows loads about Roscommon GA. There's no question about that. Just like yourself and Kevin McStay knew the ins and outs of Roscommon GA more than pretty much anybody else involved in the county. But yet there might be a perception of Anthony Cunningham as an outsider, and that perception did exist. Granted, only in small circles around yourself and Kevin McStay. Is that ever an issue? Was that ever something that got into your head, or could it be an issue for Anthony Cunningham?
Well, I think obviously Anthony has been a Bridget's club man for years. I remember he obviously managed Bridget's to the Kiltroom club to great success on, and I've met him so many times at club matches and county matches. It's unbelievable. So to clarify him or classify him as an outsider is ridiculous. But it's much better if you have everybody behind you. And if you have pockets around the county that don't support you, it affects the players and it affects the management. People say, they're in a bubble, and it doesn't, but it does. That's my opinion. And when that negative press comes out, it has to be dealt with and it has to be addressed. And there are things you don't want to be addressing and you don't want to be dealing with especially after a tough loss, because you have enough to be dealing with without dealing with stuff like that. And it's always a much better situation when you have the county behind you and the county board behind you and all the supporters behind you, for sure.
How much did it feel that the entire county was behind yourself and Kevin?
Well, obviously, you know yourself now, there was ex-county players that said they didn't like the fact that 2 Mayo men were walking the sideline and coaching the team on championship day, and that does take its toll. I suppose I can understand people maybe saying that about me, but Kevin has been living in Roscommon for I think over 30 years now. So as Kevin said, what does he want to do? Rebirth himself, So I think it's just it's nitpicking, but it does have an effect. And I haven't heard any negative talk about Anthony and his management team, and I hope I don't, because it's a tough job. You're competing now, especially next Saturday, when you're competing against the big boys now, and for you to get wins at this level, you need everybody singing off the same hymn sheet. So I hope everybody's rolling in behind Anthony and giving him all the support that he needs, because he will certainly need it next Saturday.
Yeah, like I always found it so strange. Like, it doesn't matter where somebody's from, first of all, but second of all, the partnership, especially you mentioned Kevin McStay there and the knowledge you guys had of the county and essentially being in there for so long with Bridget or whatever it may have been. But also, even if you take that aside for one moment, it's also the results that you achieved. I mean, the Connacht title a couple of years ago, having Mayo by the pin of their collar in that first game in Croke Park then that summer as well. Like, I mean, there was a clear sense of progress, but maybe some people just couldn't actually see beyond that.
Yeah, that's true. And you decide to do a thing a certain way. Kevin and myself would have a certain type of philosophy. A philosophy. We want to play expansive football. We want to play entertaining football. We feel you have to play that way to get the supporters behind you. I know the players, any players I've ever met, and Kevin will tell you they want to play that way as well. So we like, that's the way we go about it. That's the way we do it with Bridges. That's the way we did it with any other team we played with. That's the way we feel it should be played. And we also felt that if we were going to bridge the gap and do something bigger than winning a Connacht title, to beat the Mayos, to beat the Tyrones, to beat the Dublins, to beat the Kerrys, you have to play an aggressive, in-your-face type of game. That you can't just take possession off. You can't let fellas solo up and down the field. You got to apply pressure all the time. And then when you have the ball, you got to be aggressive as well, and play with good pace and good spacing and move the ball and shift defences around. And that's the way we wanted to play. We make no apologies for that. We beat Galway in Galway by 9 points in the Connacht final. There's no way that would have happened if we played a negative style of play, and each manager does what they have to do. We did it that way, and maybe people thought that we were being naive doing it that way, but we felt from year 1 to year 3, if we went to year 4, year 5, that we would bridge the gap, and we were trying to chase down the big boys. That's the ambition that we had, that we wanted to get into the Super 8 and be competitive in there and see could we get into a semi-finals and stuff. So that's the way we went about it. And as I said, we'll make no apologies for that.
Just the last one then on this, Liam. Obviously, there's a bug attached to being a manager of any team. Did you enjoy being involved with the very modern setup of an inter-county team, and would you go back into a setup in the future? I enjoyed it. It's very, very hard work. There's a lot of scrutiny, but I'm an ex-player. I suppose Kevin will tell you as well. I'm a lot older than Kevin, but I'm an ex-player. I love sport. I love basketball and football, Gaelic football in particular. And there's no way I could sit at home 7 days a week looking at the television. That's for sure. So I love coaching. It's the next best thing for me. You get a great kick out of working on the training ground and then preparing for a game, and then going out seeing 21, 22-year-olds executing the game plan and getting better in front of your eyes. And that's the buzz I get out of it now. So I don't know. I'm getting old now. I'm 54. I'm 54 on the 1st of June. So I think it's club football now, and playing a bit of basketball, scrimmage basketball during the week is enough for me, maybe at the moment anyway. Well, I was going to say congratulations on the induction to the Basketball Ireland Hall of Fame. I was about to ask, you obviously still play a bit. Oh, thank you very much. I'm delighted. We had an unbelievable. We were very, very lucky to compete at the level we competed at. To play in that era, the best basketball. The best basketball era in the history of the sport. To play against the Neptunes and the Vincents and the Stars. The Seas from Belfast was fantastic, and we had a great weekend last weekend, and very enjoyable. But that was just one of the most enjoyable times of our lives. We had a great time, and to win, to be successful in that era means an awful lot to us,
Liam, can I just ask you one quick one on Galway? You mentioned the style of play that you were adopting at Roscommon earlier on. Galway do have a little bit more of a defensive setup to the game. They've had a little bit of criticism for their performances against London and even the Sligo game recently. So where do you see Galway over the next few years, and where they're going and the style of play they're adopting, and where do you see Galway this season in general?
Well, they're going to be very tough to beat, Kevin, because of that defensive strategy. The traditionalists in Galway wouldn't like that over emphasis on defence, but they're at a certain level, and it's a very interesting question, Kevin. They're at a certain level now. They will pass to the next level, i.e. play Dublin, Mayo, Tyrone, Kerry in an All-Ireland final, and maybe win that game unless they throw off the shackles. Somewhere along the line, you have to say we have to go out now and win this game. Keeping teams down to a low score and losing 11-8 as opposed to having a cut is not going to work. And that defensive strategy and playing negatively, I think they'll get you so far, but it won't get you to the highest level. And I think they have the athleticism now and the size and the physique and the forwards to be a little bit more expansive. And I'm sure you'll see adjustments from Kevin Walsh this year, because I think he understands exactly what they need to do now to bring it on from what they did the last 2 years.
Liam, you've been very good with your time this morning. Thanks a million for taking the call.
My pleasure, lads.
Thanks, Liam.
Have a good day. Take care, fellas.
Thanks, Liam. Liam McHale there on the line. I should say we are having some tech issues with our stream this morning, so we're going to relaunch. We're going to leave you for one moment, and a fresh stream will be live again in HD in a few moments. You're welcome back. Apologies for that. Good stuff from Liam McHale there, Kev.
Yeah, great talker, great speaker there, wasn't he? He said, very interesting to talk to him there.
He's confident from a Mayo perspective anyway this weekend. I think these are the games you have to be winning if you're going to go all the way.
I think I just spoke about the very nature and how impressive Roscommon were in the Leitrim game, given that Leitrim were on such an upward curve and the success that they had in the league as well. Roscommon, I thought, were impressive enough in that game. So I think, for all the novelty around the New York trip and everything like that, this is when it really begins. And I just hope that Mayo, put in the performances that they've shown, certainly in the last 3 or 4 matches.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to get to Anoosh Chakelian in a moment to talk about Henrikh Mkhitaryan, but before that, Alan Bennett spoke glowingly to Jamie Moore about former club boss John Caulfield and what he expects the ex-Cork City boss to do next in football. We're going to go into that actually in a few moments, not just now. We're going to get into the Henrikh Mkhitaryan. The reason why we're doing this piece is a lot of us actually kind of know on a very on the surface level what exactly is going on here. Armenia and Azerbaijan don't actually like each other. I'm not sure what your knowledge is of the whole situation.
No, I've been to Armenia once.
Oh yeah,
but no, I.
What year was that?
08, 09 would it have been?
Right. Okay. So
something like that. Would that be right? Yeah, something like that. 08, 09. Yeah.
What's the place like? Lovely destination.
Yeah, I just remember Mount Ararat in the distance. Wherever we went, you could always see Mount Ararat. Do you know what Mount Ararat's famous for?
I don't.
That was where Noah's Ark was supposedly rested upon when the tide subsided. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it saved all the race of animals.
It saved us all.
Saved us all. Sorry, saved humans.
We wouldn't be here now if that wasn't the case.
It's amazing the things you see when you go on a camp in Ireland, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're going to get into the Mkhitaryan story in a moment. We'll get to a few comments as well, and later on then we're going to chat to Curtis Fleming, who's departed with Middlesbrough over the past couple of weeks. Yeah, exactly.
It's such a precarious job now, isn't it? It's such a difficult job as well that you feel as though you're settled in one place. We'll chat to Curtis around in a bit, but all of a sudden then you're gone. You've got to concentrate on something else.
Let's get to Alan Bennett now, who was speaking to Jamie Moore.
When I stood into this role, he was the first fella I rang. First guy I rang, had a conversation with him on the phone. Next day again, speak to him again. Look, the man is just an institution in Cork, and he's the most successful manager Cork City's ever had. The success he's brought to the club will be very, very hard to match. And what he did as a player, what he did as a manager is just... I can't put into words. I really can't describe how massive an influence he's had in the club, and he's sold Cork City heart and soul to people, to players, to sponsors, to everything. And I would love for him to be back involved in this club in a capacity, because he's just, I can't speak highly enough for him.
Yeah, I'm sure, once time comes, he'll decide what he wants to do himself. And I spoke to him last week on WhatsApp and said, when you want to chat, I'd love to interview you about your time with the club overall. And there has been, comment on if he'll manage again somewhere else, or will he go back to manage UCC, or will he go and do something totally different, go back to Diageo, or is he going to retire? Have you a sense often that he still has that burning desire? I'm sure he does when you see him on the sideline to have a go somewhere again.
Yeah, I think this was chapter one of his managerial career, I really do. The next project will be his decision, obviously, but I fully believe that volume one, I suppose we'll call it, of his managerial career, and anybody who wants to organise their club, put proper procedures, processes, proper management structure in place, John Caulfield is your man. He will transform your club.
Yeah, that is Alan Bennett speaking to Jamie Moore recently on the League of Ireland podcast. You can watch the full piece on youtube.com/offtheball. We are turning our attention now to the Henrikh Mkhitaryan situation. He obviously won't be travelling to Baku next week in the Europa League final to play with Arsenal. He doesn't feel safe in the country as a result of the Armenia-Azerbaijan tensions. And to explain a little bit more into this, into kind of a deeper level as to why this is, I'm delighted to be joined by Anoosh Chakelian, who is a senior writer with the NewStatesman. You're very welcome, Anoosh.
Thanks very much for having me.
So basically this tension boils down to a territory, the Nagorno-Karabakh region, which is an area inside Azerbaijan but also has a claim by Armenia. Explain to us why this is such a hotly contested area and how it manifests itself into modern day tensions.
Well, it's been an area that has had ethnic conflict for, it goes back a long way. But really during the Soviet Union, the area became its own autonomous region. It's mainly ethnic Armenian. It's majority Armenian. It has the Armenian currency. And so the Soviet regime sort of tried to stir up tensions between Azerbaijan and Armenia using this land because of its historic sort of conflicts there, in a sort of divide and rule tactic, which happens a lot around the world when empires sort of break up countries and, make patchworks of land. And so ever since then, in the 80s, it's been a real tinderbox of tensions. And there was a declaration of independence in 91, which led to a very bloody war. And although there's been a ceasefire since 94, there's still skirmishes, there's still deaths. And Azerbaijan tries to erase Armenian cultural heritage in the country. So places like churches. Armenia is the first Christian country. It became Christian in 301, but it's surrounded by a lot of countries that have other religions and other ethnic backgrounds. And, unfortunately, it has been subject to a lot of countries, not just Azerbaijan, trying to wipe its culture out. So this tiny piece of land is really important to the Armenians. It's almost symbolic because they've had so much land taken away from them and so much sort of subjugation over the centuries. This piece of land is really important for them to keep. But of course, it's in Azerbaijan, which is very difficult for the Azeris because that's a piece of land that they feel that they have a claim to. And so that's where the conflict comes from.
So that conflict manifests itself in the modern day, which means that Armenians can't travel into Azerbaijan. It's as simple as that. If you've got an Armenian passport, or even on a more plastic level, like having the letters IAN or YAN at the end of your name, like you do, for example, you wouldn't be able to get into Azerbaijan. Exactly.
I have a British passport. I was born in London. Yet still, I wouldn't be allowed to go and travel to Azerbaijan. And I think that's been a big problem for the fans, Armenian fans, but also anyone who has YAN or IAN at the end of their surname, which, is not just Armenians, have had trouble getting visas to get to this match. And obviously, it's not just about one football match. This is people being denied the right to enter a country because of a conflict, because of an injustice. So the fact that UEFA has kind of sanctioned this is quite strange.
Yeah, like what is, we'll get into the thinking behind that in a moment. When it comes to Henrikh Mkhitaryan and it comes to his safety, it's pretty obvious as to why he wouldn't be able to enter the country. But like you listen to the Azerbaijan UK ambassador and you cited his quote in your piece on NewStatesman saying, "My message to Mkhitaryan would be, you're a footballer, you want to play football, go to Baku, you are safe there. If you want to play the issue, then that's a different story." And somehow I think that ambassador is missing the point.
Yeah, it's very threatening, isn't it? It's sort of like, yes, you can come here if you just want to play football, but what's this other story if he mentions the issues or someone else provokes him or, the issue comes up, which it obviously would do because it's been the story of this competition. I don't think that if I were him that would fill me with confidence. So I do understand why he and his family and his club have made the decision for him not to go there. It seems like his safety has just not been guaranteed. But that's appalling. I mean, if it was a bigger player or if it was someone from a sort of more influential country, would it be the same story?
Well, clearly not, or clearly it would be. And you look at the ambassador's quotes, and he talks about playing the issue here, and by that he means you want to politicise things, which is kind of ironic given the past that Azerbaijan have in terms of politicising things. Like even just looking at the European Games held in Baku in 2015, like Aliyev was pretty quick to politicise things there when it came to the clampdown of journalists and dissidents and throwing them in jail before the 2015 Games. Yeah,
I mean, it's not just football as well. This has happened in Eurovision too. So there was a year 2009 when Eurovision was on, and Azeri authorities tracked down citizens in the country who dared to vote for Armenia in the contest. And so it's not just football. I mean, they politicise things that shouldn't be politicised. I mean, like Eurovision. I mean, that's a really good example. And then, of course, they've politicised it because visas have been denied to people with those surnames. So they're playing the issue.
What is the appeal for someone like Ilham Aliyev to use sport to clean up the image of Azerbaijan?
Well, I think, these clubs like Arsenal and Chelsea, they're so popular around the world. I mean, my father, he grew up in Lebanon. He was a Liverpool supporter. It's because these clubs do so well, even if they don't have any sort of national tie or cultural tie to the countries where people support them. So they're really good vehicles for whitewashing the reputation of your country around the world because they have such global resonance. And so I think that somewhere like Azerbaijan hosting a final where it's two big English clubs that have that global resonance is really good for its reputation, even though it's not a footballing country. It's not got that heritage. It's not got that culture. It's just got a hell of a lot of money, and it can use that money for its influence. It's like a cultural influence that it can use around the world by sort of buying that influence.
Yeah, and there's set to be a couple of games from Euro 2020 in Azerbaijan as well. We've mentioned the European Games in 2015. The Grand Prix in Formula 1 has often gone there as well. Has this worked, the sports washing?
I think so, because look, there's no consequences for it. A major player in one of the clubs that has reached the final is not allowed, or not allowed, but he's not been able or not felt able to go and play in that final. I mean, that is putting the money and the status of these countries over the game, isn't it? Over the player, over the game, over the fans. And so really money has won over the sport. So I do think it works.
Like we talk about why sporting organisations would bring an event to Baku, and I don't want to defend the European Olympic organisations here, but ultimately when it came to the European Games in 2015, this was an event that they badly wanted to happen, and I think Azerbaijan was like the only bidder for the event, so they were kind of, I don't want to say their hand was forced a little, but they could have gone somewhere else or just not gone to Azerbaijan at all, but there was at least a palatable excuse for them going to Azerbaijan to a certain extent. What's UEFA's excuse here?
Well, I suppose the excuse is that it was they want to have these finals played in different countries, so not just focused on Western Europe. And I do understand that instinct. I mean, you want to take football to places where fans of the clubs might not necessarily always get to go to those finals or those big matches. So I do understand that principle. And this location, Baku, was organised a long time ago, and I'm sure it's quite difficult to rearrange that. But when it comes to a location and being put and the demands, the unjust demands of the country being put over the safety of a player, that's when you need to start compromising and changing and being nimble and deciding, what do you think is more important to the sport, the player or the country with a lot of oil money that you've decided to host the final?
The way this would reach a proper kind of controversial conclusion would be if Armenia, for example, were to qualify for one of the games that was to be held in Azerbaijan for Euro 2020, or granted it's not going to happen for, given the current football landscape, an Armenian team reaching a European final or a game of consequence in Baku somewhere. Like, specifically, what would the dangers be of that ever happening were a compromise of a game not to be moved, for example?
Yes, I mean, I know that it's very unlikely to happen, but theoretically, an Armenian club could reach, the UEFA, the final. And how could that game be played in Baku? They'd have to forfeit the game, or they'd have to change the location. The Armenian players would not be able to go to that final because they, like Mkhitaryan in this situation, they wouldn't feel safe. And I think that if that scenario, even though it's very unlikely, if it theoretically can happen, that an Armenian club or Armenia could reach one of these finals, then you should choose a different location until those hostilities have come to an end, until there's diplomatic relations between the two countries. Because I know you can't rule Azerbaijan out as a location, because UEFA want to try and play these games in all of their countries. But until that conflict has been resolved, you can't choose it, because theoretically Armenian players would have to play there. That's how it works.
Kind of a final point on all of this, Anoosh, is the similarities perhaps between Azerbaijan and Paris Saint-Germain and Manchester City, who have money coming from the Middle East, oil money as well, and quite conveniently they use their airlines or whatever it may be to actually as a vehicle to try and promote their image, whatever it may be, Fly Emirates or Qatar. Whereas in this case, in the specific case of UEFA, it seems to be the Azerbaijan oil company SOCAR, which I think accounts for 10% of all of the Azeri GDP. So that's one of the title sponsors of UEFA when it comes to their flagship competitions. Does it surprise you that Azerbaijan uses as a vehicle to try and promote their image abroad? Like, is this unprecedented that UEFA or a very, very influential organisation will get into bed with somebody like SOCAR and therefore the Azerbaijan state?
I don't think it's unprecedented, because you mentioned those other clubs, Manchester City and Abu Dhabi. I mean, really, these countries are built on their wealth, and so that industry is inextricable from the actual state. That industry is inextricable from the power of that state. So, getting into bed with that oil company, I mean, that's synonymous with getting into bed with Azerbaijan. That's where their power, their influence and their resonance around the world comes from. And that's why, that football and clubs are able to overlook the human rights abuses and the authoritarian and autocratic nature of lots of these regimes to get into bed with them and to use them for money.
What's your
it's not unprecedented. It's a big part of football.
Exactly, and it is becoming a bigger part of football as well. I dare say this isn't going to change anytime soon, and if it is going to change, it's only going to be a growing influence of the oil-rich countries on the decision-making process of UEFA.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see it changing. I mean, with this particular instance, with Mkhitaryan not attending the match, there has been outrage. Fans are really upset about it being in Baku in the first place, but it's going ahead, isn't it? The decision has been made. And the more that you can get away with these kind of decisions, the more it will happen.
Anoosh, thanks a million for taking the call this morning. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much for having me.
Anoosh Chakelian there, senior writer with the New Statesman. You can check out her work on newstatesman.com. A great piece in the politics section there, an explainer of her situation and the Henrikh Mkhitaryan situation. So Mkhitaryan, obviously...
stuff that actually, yeah, it's very good.
It's interesting to kind of think about the meaning behind some of the icons you see, like that SOCAR logo. It's something that we see on the hoardings and on some of the ads around Champions League games and Europa League games, and it was actually kind of surprising. I did not know that was part of Azerbaijan's state whatsoever.
It's amazing though, isn't it, as well, that the point you made there, can you imagine if an Armenian side, albeit highly unlikely, got to the final this season? It's incredible that is the case, that you actually could have a final where the final would have to be actually moved if a certain team get to a final. That has to be thought ahead. Realistically it does, and we know that the state of football the way that it is, in looking ahead and bringing the games to different nations and different countries, but the country should be off the radar if that is the case. That's certainly the way that it is, isn't it?
It's weird as well, not that unusual actually, that's or unexpected that we were actually talking about this on the back of Henrikh Mkhitaryan not being able to go, a high-profile player with a high-profile team. Ultimately, to be fair, it has been spoken about with a couple of examples that I mentioned in the past, especially with the European Games in 2015. But I wonder if this is a conversation we should have been having anyway, regardless of the fact that an Armenian player can't get into the country.
Yeah, it's true. You're looking ahead of it, but you don't necessarily think. When a venue's named as a host nation, you don't necessarily you're not thinking that too far ahead. You're almost concentrating. You're in the now, aren't you? You're just concentrating on what games are around the corner in the next couple of weeks. Where might the final be in that particular season? But yeah, it's true. Maybe that's something to look at. Where's next year's Champions League final? Where's next year's Europa League final? I actually don't know off the top of my head now. You're kind of in there now. You're kind of just concentrating on what's around the corner.
There's some amazing stats that I looked at when it came to the 2015 European Games in Baku. So they spent £6.5 billion on the games in 2015, like for a European Games. Extraordinary. I think they spent 4 times the amount in the opening ceremony than London did for the Olympics in 2012. Lady Gaga was paid £2 million to perform one song, and The Guardian did a great piece of Azerbaijan nationals living in complete poverty in the shadow of the stadium.
What did she sing? Was it worth it?
I think it was actually Imagine by John Lennon. I think it was a cover,
it?
Yeah.
Oh.
You come to our country, we pay you £2 million and you sing a cover. For God's sake, at least get some bang for your Azerbaijani buck. We're going to have Phil Egan in a moment to give us all the sports news this morning, but before that, acknowledging the deficiencies in Munster's current setup, Keith Wood believes the province must double down on their determination to recruit homegrown talent.
Keith, what the lads are saying there tallies with your analysis as well. There's a consistency about what people are saying. Andy Dunn, I asked him, are the players good enough? He said, yes, absolutely, they are good enough. So really this comes down to coaching, and there is now a big pressure to get this ticket right.
Well, I think so, but I would equally say it's good enough for an awful lot, but I don't know that they're necessarily good enough to be at the top table. And if I go back to 2006, 2008, and look at the Munster teams, which everybody finds a little bit hard work when you have to go back that far. So there was a lot of world-class players in that team. The joy of it was that they were mostly Munster-born, and that was a very big thing, and it's very important. And that's where Munster have to get back to again. But that's going to take a period of time. There is an awful lot of work happening at the academy level and below to try and change that, and there's an awful lot more is going to have to happen over the next couple of years. But that ultimately has to be the view of where Munster want to get to. It's how do they traverse in that interim period of time, and will they need to go out and get a couple of huge signings? And so Van Graan is saying, well, he doesn't see that that's happening, but if that's something that's essential, then it's going to have to happen, and the money would have to be found to pay them and to make those things happen, because you don't want to drift away from the idea of it being Munster born and bred, and there has been a step away from that because there's a recognition that there hasn't been the quality of the players coming through, and that has made it very, very difficult for them. So that's a reality, but ultimately the drive still has to be that you would be looking for the very vast bulk of players to be born and bred in Munster, playing for Munster. That's essential.
Yeah, Keith Wood talking about homegrown talent there on Wednesday Night Rugby last night. You can get the full podcast online, and you can go on to youtube.com/offtheball to watch the full conversation back as well. Right, BMW and Triathlon Ireland are challenging the OTB team to hashtag Try for Pieta this summer and raise funds for a Pieta house. For more information, check out triathlonireland.com, and you'll see the link for more info for Try for Pieta. BMW is a proud partner of Triathlon Ireland and is its title sponsor of the BMW Triathlon National Series, which is 17 of the most exciting triathlon races in Ireland. Doing a triathlon is easier than you think. People of all ages and abilities take part. Of course, Team OTB is doing the triathlon. Actually, 2 Team OTBs. There's the A team, which is myself, Joe Malloy and Nathan Murphy, and the B team, which is Phil Egan, Ger Gilroy and Adrian Barry.
Discussion, though. Is that not like the title that you get after? Whoever wins will become the first team.
I think it's pretty clear who.
Can I just ask you one thing? Why isn't somebody from Team OTB, that you like to be called now, it's very, very corny, but why isn't someone from the team actually doing it themselves, one of us doing the whole event, rather than say do a crappy 5k, which is easy, 20k on a bike, which is, the swim I'd struggle, and I get that, I can't swim at all, but
that's probably why
I've heard Joe making such a big deal of doing 20k on a bike. Come on,
we were cycling last night, and
Jer's not in. I'm really starting to get worried about my team.
Jer's not in. I don't know where he went.
Adrian Barry went swimming there, and he didn't turn up the next day either.
We went up Hoth Hill last night and didn't see Ger after it, so he hasn't just shown up. He's just disappeared somewhere in the mountain. Yeah.
Oh,
it was tough. You were supposed to do it, Kev.
Yeah.
So
I'm at a wedding. I'm at a wedding that day.
And you were giving out to us about only doing one leg of a triathlon. At least we're doing one more leg than you are.
Well, come on though. 5k run. I've heard Nathan going about a 5k run. This fella here, 5k run, cigars. Not a bother at all. I would bet heavily now that he will finish probably a kilometre ahead of Nathan. That's the way I'm looking at. And I'm betting probably quite heavily that you'll finish probably 2 or 3 kilometres ahead of Ger.
That's not going to happen. Ger's actually quick enough on the flat. It's just once he gets up the mountain, he struggles.
I say Ger's powerful enough. I'd say that'd be the case.
Yeah, I managed to get up to the top of the mountain, and I won't say how Ger managed to get on. Let's just say he left.
Basically, he didn't get up the mountain.
I've seen Ger. He's here.
You see, it was tough. It was tough. It was. I'm not going to lie. I was all braggadocious and stuff before our training yesterday. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Ger's actually outside. He's.
Is he coming in? Is he like giving you the finger behind the door?
He's finally been found. Mountain Rescue got him. he's putting on a microphone. And he's coming in. And he looks like
he's coming in. He's coming in with something to defend here now, isn't he? As well, yeah. Weak management. That's what I call that. Honestly, if he feels that he's got to defend himself.
Walking in the studio, this is like Stone Cold Steve Austin coming into the ring. Unexpected. Pull up a seat. Pull up a seat.
Oh yeah. Go on. Watch the head. Yeah.
I'm just here to drop some truth bombs on you.
Yeah, come on, drop all the truth bombs you want.
How did you get home last night, on? He walked home.
No, I got up on the bike. I did cycle home.
He got off the bike at Collins Avenue and went, I'm just going to walk this now.
That's what I said.
And maybe I'll get a bus.
To be fair, I did actually cycle home.
Did you?
Actually,
But do you know what I have? I've heard over the last few days. You complaining about the width of your tyres, Owen. Yeah. That's a bike, mate.
I barely cycled the thing yesterday.
A decent bike, you're going to have very narrow tyre width.
I fell off the bike yesterday. So they were doing an exercise going around a little track, and basically the task was to reach down, take out your water bottle, take a drink, and put it back. And I can't multitask, so I lost everything.
And how do you get off a bike?
I have no idea. I was kind of like you know the way you get marks in gymnastics for landing properly. I feel like I should get marks if I can get off the bike properly on the day of the triathlon, or at least get like a 10-second cushion.
The bike stops. He pulls the brakes. And then he jumps or falls depending on how much control.
Phil, you need to get to your actual radio bulletin. Do you want to go through some sports headlines?
I actually have visions of you, your transition, you'll do a ghosty. You just get off the bike and it'll just keep going.
That would be nice and smooth. I would be happy with that.
Okay, so the stories today. FIFA has obviously scrapped plans to expand the 2022 World Cup to 48 teams. Gianni Infantino, the president, had proposed increasing it, but FIFA's determined it's not practical because the change would have required Qatar to share hosting duties with other countries in the region. But the good news is it'll still be played in November and December. The final is due to take place a week before Christmas. The 2026 event in the US, Canada and Mexico will have 48 teams in it. Obviously, we're talking about Luca Connell, and some interesting quotes from him. We're going to hear from him in just a moment, but he was asked about, England or Ireland, and he said he has to be grateful for any team that wants him to play for them. There was a rumour England wanted him, but Ireland took him first. So I don't know what you make of those quotes. So the Irish squad are currently training in Portugal ahead of their European qualifiers against Denmark and Gibraltar. And Connell said he's been made feel very welcome. He is a boyhood Everton fan, so obviously there's one player he's in awe of.
I can't thank the lads enough. I mean, everyone's took me in and welcomed me in and made me feel part of the team already. So as you could guess, probably Seamus Coleman, I mean, the skipper and an idol really, isn't he? I look up to him because he plays for my childhood team, so Coleman's helped me a lot. It's crazy, to be walking in and, you just see them and you've watched them for 10 years plus maybe, and then you're just now in a team with them and be training with them today. It's unbelievable.
That's disappointing. I thought he was going to say Kilbane.
Yeah, so did I.
Not at all. He probably wouldn't remember me playing. No. He's too young. Yeah, but you know what? That does make a difference, though. You forget about the power of, your boyhood hero. He's getting into the squad there and he's seeing Seamus Coleman. I remember when I got in the Irish squad and Ray Houghton and Cascarino and these lads were in the squad when I was a kid. So that'll be massive for him getting in there.
It's all up to Seamus.
Yeah.
Or you could call around to his house. You could do your bit for the country.
Is that right?
117th time.
Yeah, is that what it is? Do we think we should just cap him straight away then? Just cap him and that's it?
I don't know if we have enough time for this, but just before I go, obviously...
We'll let Phil go and then we can have that conversation.
Yeah, I want to come back for it then. But the boxing is obviously going to take place at the Olympics in Tokyo next year. The IOC have recommended that it stays as an Olympic event, but they've called for the suspension of recognition of the International Boxing Association. AIBA is facing a suspension over governance issues. So there's just a few things to clear up, really. The qualifying events for Tokyo are now likely to take place between January and May of next year. So it doesn't really leave much of a run-in before the Games, which begin in July. Obviously, Kelly Harrington and Joe Ward, as it stands, are our best two medal prospects. But given what happened in Rio, I wouldn't have much faith that the judging is going to be any better.
If you get rid of AIBA, though, it might be.
Hopefully.
That's the hope.
Good stuff, Phil. Here's Lawrence Donegan and Brooks Koepka last night.
So he's racked up 4 majors in no time. I'd say Rory is looking around going, what's just happened here? I'm our generation's main man. Ernie Els, it took him 18 years and a stellar career to get to 4 majors. What are we looking at here in golfing terms in Koepka? Flash in the pan, or somebody that actually is going to be in the conversation of most majors we talk about over the next decade?
Well, I was looking at his stats over the weekend. You think, well, he's a one-dimensional guy. Club head speed of 180 miles an hour, ball speed of 180 plus. Bashes at miles, gouges at outputs. The thing is, he does everything pretty well. He really does. He is a fairly one-dimensional guy. But when called upon, if you remember back at Shinnecock, I think he had to par the last to beat off Tommy Fleetwood. And he played a beautiful pitch up there. So he's more than a one-dimensional guy. But let's see. I'd be very, very interested to see how he does in the next 2 majors, because neither of those golf courses you would think are going to be terribly suited to him. Yeah. You look at that golf course at the weekend. You look at the final leaderboard. I mean, it really was. It was a bomber's paradise. Because he goes into the final round with a 7-shot lead, and you look at his driving distance average. I mean, he hits less than 50% fairways on Sunday. His average driving distance is 344 yards. So basically the strategy was hit it as far as you can, go and find it. Which actually didn't, because he shot 74, which is a pretty bad round for him. Yeah. He dialed it back up a little bit in the previous 3 rounds, and he played brilliantly, obviously. But he is a pretty much a kind of one-dimensional guy when all's said and done. But you go to Pebble Beach and you go to Port Rush, and you just wonder how he's going to because he's going to have to negotiate his way around those golf courses. No, whereas at Bethpage, he could just let rip.
Lawrence Donegan speaking about Brooks Koepka to Joe last night. Jerry's still here because he's got one more thing to say. Go for it, Jer.
Can you tell the difference between your front and back brake? No.
Well, I heard him actually talking about the bloody bike and how to change gears and things as well.
Now, the only reason I'm bringing all this up is because he was full of the trash talk, full of the piss and vinegar about how he was going to crush me. The gap was going to be. In fairness, he did go past me a couple of times on the way up the hill. I'm carrying a bit more weight. That's fair enough. But on the way back down, he was like miles behind me. So we'll see. It's a long road with no turning, is all I'd say.
20k.
The outlads still have something in them.
Cigar time, lads. That's all I'm saying to you. 20 kilometres on a bike.
I would say so, yeah. We definitely cycled about 50k last night.
No, we didn't.
What did we cycle?
We cycled less than 20.
Did we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Going around the track for like a full hour.
Which hills?
The track is tiny.
Which hills are you going up last night?
Hoth Hill, in fairness.
Oh, that's a good one. I've run up that hill. That's a toughie. It's a toughie, yeah.
Right? Yeah, Kenny used to say he used to cycle up and go pitch and putting up on the top.
Coming down is amazing.
Yeah.
I was doing the proper, really shouldn't have been first time on a bike in 20 years, doing the proper Tour de France descent.
They're good, the old cycle crew. Apparently you just build it up over a period of time. There's basically a really tough loop at the very top of Hoth Hill.
Did you thank Ian, the coach who saved your life a couple of times?
Yeah, Ian did save my life for sure. Thank you very much, Ian. I love the way you're kind of you're getting in there in terms of actually.
You seem pretty weak, Owen. I've got to say that.
Come on,
you do seem pretty weak.
Tell the truth. Yeah, you did the extra bit at the top, came down. He looked like Alan Brazil coming at the end of that.
Fair enough.
Giant swollen red head.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Like to be fair, you were more kind of like the mountain when he actually took off the shield at the top of his head. Well, look, kind of eyes that were indecipherable, which is fine.
You've laid the gauntlet down. I've picked it up.
Yeah, you have. In fairness, I've learned how to cycle a bike, which is a good start. It would be rather embarrassing if you got beaten by somebody who couldn't even ride a bike last night.
You know he's going to Primavera in Barcelona Music Festival. Yeah, next weekend. Perfect.
I didn't know he was going, but I know of the music festival. So that's next weekend.
He's got 5 days build up.
It's going to level the playing field nicely.
It is, yeah. Take it easy there.
Or else it's just a warm weather training camp and cover for that.
The bikes are cool, by the way. It's you get out and it's like lovely, sunny, warm May evening, and the wind is beating the crap out of you off the bay, and it's a beautiful thing to do. I'm hooked.
Yeah, are you?
Yeah, it's great.
Why didn't you do that bit at the end then?
Because I would have been dead today.
Ah, fair enough.
A bit like you.
Well, I was hooked, and I did the full summit. That's my Everest done right there, actually.
Good stuff.
Just Hoth Hill.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, I don't know. How do you feel?
Okay, actually.
Yeah, not as bad as I thought I would. It's I think it's easier than pounding the pavements as a runner.
Could be tomorrow.
Could be day 2.
We got Curtis coming up on the line, but I want to ask Jay something before he does go, because I've been listening to the last couple of days talking about Luke O'Connell.
Oh yeah,
we just mentioned him before. So your suggestion is that we just cap him.
Well, what the alternative here is that we have 2 years of nonsense, and shithousery on the side of England. Yeah, let's give him a 3-minute cap. So the conversation finishes. Yeah, and if he makes it, he makes it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Okay, well, I'll take that. I disagree with that, what you're saying, but I'll take you said the last couple of days as well that Declan Rice should have been capped in that Moldova game. Just should have been captain. That's it. Bearing in mind what he's thinking in his head and where he is now, you'd have capped him. Was he thinking it in his head at the time? Well, he must have been. Because he says himself in an interview with AFA, "I'm English. Listen to my accent. Yeah, I'm English." Yeah, at the end he says that. At the end. Yeah. So I think that he was in a relationship as a teenager. He wanted to cheat in that relationship, did he? I don't think he did at the time. Right. But I think something better. He was in a committed relationship at the time. He was, and something better came along and turned his head. Yeah. Something with more money, slightly better looking at the time. You know, it was Martin O'Neill versus Gareth Southgate. It was the chance to play with Raheem Sterling and all those guys. They were pretty good. And I think that he had his head turned, but I don't think his head would have been turned if we'd put a ring on it. Right. I think that Beyonce had this right. If we like it, put the ring on it. Yeah, I don't agree with that, actually. I mean, I understand it's a complex national question. Because the way I would see it is that thought must have been in his head when he's first come into the squad, thinking, because it would have been mentioned to him, as I said at the start, when he's first started playing underage football, look, come and play with us for a couple of years, see how you feel. Which that mindset has got to be taken off the table now straight away whenever you're talking to one of the younger players. And isn't that what Big Sam said to you? Go and play with England and see how you feel. Isn't that what? He said to me, go and train with them for a few days. Yeah. Go and train with them for a few days, you'll be fine. Yeah. So he basically forced me to go and train, but he knew full well that it was never going to happen. Though then, that was it. Yeah, but that's how football treats this. It's like, should do it anyway and see what happens. Yeah. I'd say Declan Rice had his mind changed. I think that's what happened, because it did look like he played like he was committed. Yeah. He spoke like he was committed. Yeah. And I don't think he's a liar. I think that he's a teenager who, at some point, massive pressure was brought to bear by the chairman of the club and his new agent, who were like, I'm going to make millions, I'm going to make millions, you're going to make millions, let's make millions. And I wouldn't disagree with anything you're saying there, but if we capped him, do you think he would have had those doubts afterwards? Because I don't think he would, because it wouldn't have been an issue. Well, it wouldn't have been an issue because it wouldn't have been on the table then. It would have been off the table totally. But he would have 100% had that mindset when he first come into the Irish squad, which in my mind, we shouldn't be capping him at any level to start with, because that mindset's in place. How do you test that? Well, you're not going to be able to test it because you're giving someone an opportunity. Luke O'Connell said it himself. Look, I've got a chance to come in. You know, there's talk of England. If there's talk of England, it's in his head, and I think that's got to be in Mick McCarthy's head. I personally would not cap him. I wouldn't cap him. What's the point in bringing him in then? Well, because he's eligible. He's eligible, and you're having that conversation with him now that he's in the squad, as Mick's saying, he's in to train. We're looking at, he's only played 12 games. He's played 11, I think it's 11, maybe even 10 league appearances he's made. So there's no chance of the 10 league appearances he should be playing, or should be getting an international cap, I don't think. We have got Curtis Fleming on the line. Good morning to you, Curtis.
Good morning, lads. How you doing?
Good. Okay. We may as well get your take on this. I mean, has the Declan Rice situation informed a manager like Mick McCarthy to the point where Luke O'Connell should be capped regardless of the intangible that is his potential quality?
Well, first of all, I was hoping I wasn't going to get at him. You were going to move straight on, because I was quite hated there. Kev, I was thinking I'll shoot it out of this in a minute, but I would go down the Kev route. I think that Luke O'Connell played against us this season. He was the outstanding player for both. In a team that was struggling, he was unbelievable. He was unbelievable. He did a brilliant game against us. We beat him, but he's the outstanding player. He's got a little bit of he's a good footballer, but puts his foot in as well, and I thought brilliant. And now he's Liverpoolian. I think, as Kev knows, and I think most players, ex-players would know, is that when you go to the squad, even meeting up, this gives the manager and the club, the association, and the players a chance to mix in with this lad and see what he's like. You know, because we're having a look as well. He may be having a look, but we're having a look as well. And if he's not the right character, and as Kev knows, I don't think Mick will put up, with any fools or any people that are there just for a little holiday. So I think it goes both ways for me. I think get him in, have a look. There's no doubt the kid can play. But you'll hear things, you'll see things in a few days that when you're working, when you're in the squads, and you'll see, is he cocky? Is he not? Is he confident? What's he thinking? Is he onto his agent all the time? Is his agent in his ear and stuff like that? And I think it's a great chance for Ireland. I don't think anybody should be given a cap, a 2-minute cap or a 3-minute cap, to think that maybe he may play for us or we have a chance of keeping him. I think it's absolute craziness, because we all build up, really, to, we start playing at 8, 9, 10 to play for our countries. And when you play for that first minute, I think you've got to warrant that.
Yeah, Curtis, I've never seen him play, so just quickly, you talked about you've played against him this season when you were at Middlesbrough. What type of player is he?
He's a get-on, he's a sitter, midfield, bombs on now and again, Kev, but he gets it. He's got an unbelievable spray. He can get it from one side, a little shift it, and can spray it 40, 50 yards to the opposite side of the pitch. The biggest thing for me was he smashed our right back here with 6'4",
yeah,
and left a little bit on him and get up and kind of swagger off. Not in a big time. We just said, "I'm not taking you pushing me around. I'm not taking you kicking me." And when the crowd turned a little bit at Bolton, as they were at the time, there was so much going on off the pitch. He just seemed to be that one guy that just kept going to get it. And I think that's the bravest part of football, going to go and get the ball when things aren't going right. So straight away, everybody, there's no doubt, Middlesbrough, when I was there, we were talking about him after it. I'd say there was 10, 12 scouts there that night looking at him and that. So he's going to be a top player, but we don't know how he's going to live. He's 17. We don't know what's going to happen, Kev, but there's no doubt that if we can get him into an Ireland shirt, and he wants to be there and he wants to play, there's no doubt he'll be playing with Ireland for the next 10, 15 years.
Sounds like a player we should cap.
We've heard that before, haven't we? There you go. So yeah,
but that's what it is. Yeah. Everyone, you've got to look at them all as individuals. Declan Rice isn't the same as Luca Collins, so we can't even put them in the same bracket. So two different kids coming from two different places. Declan Rice has made mistakes, said and all that. But if Declan Rice wants to play for England, for me, deep down, it was inside, it was in his stomach. I had a chance once, Kev, to play for Jamaica. Yeah. You remember the Reggae Boys?
Yeah.
I got a call from the Jamaican embassy saying, to Middlesbrough, saying, your dad's, originally from Kingston. And my mum and dad had split up when I was a kid, and my ma brought me up. So I was very, very Ireland. But I said, no, I don't want to play for Jamaica. I don't want to go to the World Cup. I want to wear my Ireland shirt. That's what I want to do. So I always knew what I wanted to do. So everyone's different, Kev.
Yeah.
I could have gone off, and I could have been singing. I could have been miming the Jamaican national anthem. You know what I mean? Think of what it was me.
Kissing the badge and everything. There you go.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And stuff, which sometimes I think, happens too easy for people. But I think we just got to accept it and not go too deep on the kid. Let him get in, and he might just absolutely love it. He might absolutely love it, and straight away say, please give me a chance. And then we've got to take him on his word then.
Yeah, for sure. We wanted to chat Middlesbrough with you, Curtis, because obviously you've departed from the backroom team there over the past couple of weeks. Once Tony Pulis was gone from the club, was it automatic that you and a couple of the other coaches would follow?
No, it wasn't. We were when Tony left at the end of the season, we had half a thought, because we hadn't got in the playoffs, that he may go. But a lot of us were thinking that we'd probably be kept on. I was disappointed, to be fair, to hear that I was leaving as they brought me back from QPR last year, 18 months ago, and with my brother connections and that I still have a part to play in kind of getting the club to where it wants to be. So it was a bit of a shock, really, and a disappointment, really. But that's the way football is for me. I think it's at the level that we coach at. It's a precarious job, and sometimes, the sentiment goes out the window, and you just got to take it on the chin and move on.
What happened this season, Curtis? Why didn't it go to plan with the ideal way of promotion at the end?
Yeah, I think I would say bad luck. I would say we went on that 6-game run, which was the one really that killed us. We had a lot of chances in those games. Everyone seemed to be saying you're very, very negative, very, very negative. Tony, as everyone knows, he's very structured in where he goes. Everything is built from a solid base, really. He doesn't really want chaos and madness. He wants to be organised and then break and from that. But the biggest one for me was we lost Adama Traore to Wolves, 22 million. And I'm telling you, we weren't far off the way we played last year, but we had the equalising bullet or the golden bullet. You know what I mean? That every time we got the ball, something would happen. We sold him for 22 million. Ben Gibson left then to Burnley for 15 million, and Bamford left to Leeds for 10 million. So, and we didn't really replace those guys. So Tony had said that he thought getting to 7th this season was a better achievement than getting into the playoffs last season. I'm not sure about that, but I think we ended up where we maybe should have.
Was there ever any sense, Curtis, that they might have wanted to keep you around for continuity's sake, or even, like, given you've been a player there for so long as well, for the bulk of your career, that you kind of know what the club is all about, that whoever the new manager would be, whoever that may be, permanently installed, you would be a huge asset to them, no?
Yeah, well, that was my thinking as well. So when I walked in, I was expecting to be kept. I was thinking continuity. I have no... I've got nothing but the club in me, kind of me head and me heart. I'm not going to be the voices behind the scenes. I don't think I should be this, or I don't think I should be that. I love coaching, I love getting involved, and whoever come in, you give them 110% backing, especially with no manager in place, no manager having a chance to make the decision. I felt this was the club's decision to let me go, and that probably hurt more than anything, seeing that they've been trying to get me back to the club for a few seasons now, and I left Ian Holloway down to QPR, who I get along really, really well with, but it was a chance to come back to the club that I played over 300 times for. So, yeah, it's disappointing and hurting, but I don't know if it's an Irish thing. Is it just that what we've got? We couldn't get up fighting again, and I'm ready for the next challenge.
Is that an immediate thing, that the next challenge will come as soon as possible? And will it be a first-team coach or assistant role again, or are you looking for the big gig?
No, I'm looking for the big gig, I think. I've been speaking to a few people over the last few days, and I'm just trying to... I want to stay in the game in whatever capacity, but I think that, you know, after all the coaching I've done, the level I've been coaching at, and the players, the egos and people that you've had to deal with, I've got no problems with stepping into that managerial role and having a go. People always keep telling me that, you know, you're too old to go in, or you're too young, or don't go here or don't go there and stuff. I feel like I'm ready. I've done my apprenticeship. I've coached from under 13s up the first team. I've done all my badges through the FAI, the pro licence, and I'm ready to go. So it doesn't scare me. And some people need to step straight in, as Frank Lampard has done, and other people who have to do, you know, 6-7 years to get the real confidence, belief and a philosophy of what they want to do, and I feel like I'm ready and I'm there.
Yeah, Curtis, I've just tried to write down as many names as I could off the top of my head this morning, coaches and managers, certainly with Chris Hughton just going this week as well, one of our Irish coaches there. Brian Barry Murphy's further down, he's just taken over at Rochdale. Jim Goodwin, who's up in Scotland, that probably people won't know about. But aside of that, we don't have many Irish coaches managing at the top level across, or at any level across England at all. Outside Ireland, I've just met James O'Connor as well. He's at Orlando City as well. What has got into your head now then, Curtis, that now you want to take a top job? You've coached for so long. Chris Hughton did it for such a long time. He was coaching in the background to an extent. Lee Carsey's doing the same. I'll speak to Lee on a regular basis. What's now in your head why you decided now you were ready for the top job, or to take a top job?
Well, I think it's like anything. I think it's all experience, Kev. I think in my mind, I like the jobs I'm doing. The people I've worked with, I've done very well with. They've always got to come back and get me. They build your confidence as such as to walk into a building and stand in front of directors and the chairman, and you probably have to sell yourself a little bit. But I know when I go into my meeting now, and I know I go for an interview, Kev, that I've nailed everything. You can't say I haven't worked with youth. You can't say I haven't worked with some quality players. You can't say I haven't got my badges. You can't say I haven't got the passion for it. And I just feel, you know, now is the right time. So maybe getting, you know, let go and getting released from Middlesbrough may be a blessing in disguise in one way, because you know, with one door closes, another opens. And going back to the Irish coaches, I think there should be more Irish coaches. I think we should be pushing along. I did my badges with in Ireland and that, and Cookies at Wigan, and I know Cookies from Liverpool and all that. But after he's Sligo, you know, starting his coaching really journey at Sligo, and you know, you look at Sam Allardyce started at Limerick.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's so many people that have gone on that have managed in Ireland and stuff. But I feel that we have to have a bit more belief in ourselves, and really be pushed when you do your badges in Ireland, we need to get some of the coaches, I think, when we've studied in Ireland, to get into the English clubs. Even, you know, you're not looking for people's jobs, you're just looking for experience, and just get people in there for a month, 2 months, and experience what it's like day to day.
Yeah, I wrote all these names. I mentioned Lee before. The coaches, Cliffy Byrne, he's coaching there. At Doncaster as well. We've got a lot of lads. Stephen Reid, who's been coaching, Andy Reid, who's involved in the youth structure here. Richard Dunn, Keith Andrews, Mark Kinsella. Yeah. And I spoke to Graham Kavanagh as well recently. You'd know very well as well, Curtis. And have you ever been off put? Even Gary Breen and David Conley as well, and other lads you'd speak to that don't necessarily have a real inclination, particularly Gary Breen, have been a bit put off by the experience of coaching and managing at lower league football over in England. Been put off by the whole experience. Have you never had that experience, particularly with this week after leaving Middlesbrough?
Yeah, I think you do, Kev. But I think, what are we? You know, what gives you the buzz? What did we start off wanting to be and to be involved in and stuff? And I know, to be fair, if we grab the ball out, lads, me, you, and you till tomorrow, we all going to have a five-a-side off the wall tomorrow. You talk about it every day, Kev, because you love it. And I think that there are experiences. I was at Hartlepool as assistant manager with Craig Hignett. Before I went to QPR, so it was one extreme to the other, really. And it was kind of literally balls, bibs, you know, driving the minibus to training, making sure the lads, you know, get the pay some of the time. And it was really tough. But I think that makes you. And I think that if you go into the jobs thinking that it's going to be Barcelona or Man City, and you're going to have this and you're going to have that, you're not going to. But what you can do is you can go in and make a difference. And I feel like all the time I coach or I get involved, the lads, on an individual off the pitch basis as well. I think you're helping them. And I always think that we always needed it. I don't care who you are as a player, on and off the pitch, whatever level, when you started, Kev, we all needed someone there to give us that hand up or to help us along and stuff. And yeah, you get treated badly and you get sacked and that. But I think it was Rafa Benitez been sacked 8 times. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So what does he do? Does he just sit, you know, in his villa in Spain somewhere? He's made enough money, he's done okay, but he keeps coming back because it's the buzz. It's the buzz of football, and I find that I think a lot of people have been put off by it. But I think when you get knocked back a little bit, you know, take a deep breath in and then think, right, am I going again? And when you go, you're a better coach for it because you've learned different things.
Curtis, you mentioned like the respect that Irish managers get in England at the moment. Like, would you consider League of Ireland as a potential managerial option? Would that give you a line in your CV that you think would get the respect required to go back to the UK again?
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Again, I would be comfortable doing it. And I think it's one of them that it has to. You know, they have to want you. You know, I've got contacts in England. A lot of contacts for me on the coaching side. So there are players that you could probably get on loan. There'd be players that you want to bring in. The League of Ireland, there's a lot of players that's getting capped now, which is unbelievable. Again, and it's great to see. And I'm always a big advocate for it because I think there was a few players when Paul McGrath was playing, you know, etc. You know, Liam O'Brien was at Shamrock Rovers. So I think there's so many players that probably haven't got a chance. I think the chance is gone. League of Ireland for me is brilliant because I'll be getting home. I'm not working day to day. Once you're on the pitch working day to day, it's fantastic. So a club is a club to me. It doesn't matter what country it is. It just has to give you that buzz that you want to get in and get started and give it your all. Yeah,
I mean, off that as well, there's a few quotes in the Irish papers today, Curtis, around you wanting to take the Irish job, the top job. Given what Stephen Kenny did, and he's put himself in the position by essentially managing through the League of Ireland structure or the Irish structure. Do you see, off the back of that then, is it paramount then if you came over here you'd have to get the right club to get the success to put you in a position to get the Irish job? Is that your ultimate ambition?
I think it has to be, Kev. I think it goes back, and I think that maybe I'm naive and maybe I've come across a little bit, you know, what you thought, you know, a bit of a sap, as you used to say in volleyball. But I think when you start playing football, your goal ever, you know, when I was growing up, I wanted to play professional. I wanted to play in an FA Cup final. I wanted to play for my country. That was it. That was like, you know, when you're thinking, there's no way that's ever going to happen. And I think it's the same with coaching. as soon as you go into the coaching, you're thinking, right, I want to coach at the highest level I can. Now in football, I had to start with Belvedere, and then I went to St. Patrick's, and that was my route through. And now maybe then I'm going to the League of Ireland and I'm going to work my way through. But why not have goals? Everything's achievable. Brian Kerr did it. And Brian Kerr was my manager at St. Pat's for 5 years. And he gave me confidence. He got me move away to England with confidence and playing in the League of Ireland. So I think, it would be great. It would be great if you can get the top club, most money and the best players, and you do that. But that doesn't usually happen, as Graham Kavanagh would tell you. Because I remember speaking to Kavanagh a few occasions when he was manager at Carlisle, and he just couldn't believe all the different things that were going on off the pitch, and he was thinking, this was getting him down, and some of the players weren't as professional as they should have been, or he thought they should have been. But again, it's something you've got to teach them. They're not playing in Premier League; they're playing at League Two, and they all need a bit of guidance as well.
Curtis, we mentioned Chris Hughton there and his departure recently. He wasn't just flying the flag for Irish coaches in the Premier League. He was flying the flag for black coaches in the league as well. And the number of black, Asian and minority ethnic groups coaches in top tier football and across all the divisions in English football is something that's been brought up quite a bit by Kick It Out and other campaigning organisations over the past couple of months and years, to the point now where there are serious concerns about the number of coaches and the diversity in the top managerial jobs, especially in England. How real an issue is this from your experience?
I think it's a big issue. I think it's important. We talk about the League of Ireland, and you see Ireland managers managing in the League of Ireland. I think you look at the top league in England, and you think you see the same nationalities in that. I've worked for Show Racing Red Card for 19 years. We were going into schools and kind of trying to use football as a tool really to educate the kids and break down barriers really. And I think there has to be, because we look at the percentage of black and Asian coaches who are in it in the league and the top leagues as well in the country, the amount of money that comes through it and all the coaching courses that are being done at the moment, there has to be a pathway. There has to be a belief in a pathway. And I'm not sure that a lot of the black and the Asian coaches think that they can make it to the summit. And I think that's where the FA, the PFA have to get together. The same in the League of Ireland. I mean, we've got to be open. We've got to be open to where we want to go and what we want to do. And I always class myself as a coach first. When I go into a job, I don't think I'm a black Irish fella looking for a coaching job. When I go in and I go, I'm a coach first and foremost. If they don't like my nationality or they don't like my colour, okay, then we have a problem. And then I would highlight that. But I don't think that we can get on, in some of these meetings. I was at a meeting a few years ago down at the House of Commons, and everyone was saying, well, there's no jobs there and you won't get a job. And I just think, well, if I'm a young coach starting, I'd go and take up tennis because you are all telling me that there's no chance I'm going to get a chance in the game I love. And I think there are chances there, but we've got to still keep banging the drum.
Yeah, for sure. And there's been some very interesting discussion about this recently. Danny Rose in particular was very heavy on this topic a couple of weeks ago. He said, when I said that I was talking about the lack of black managers within football now, people ask me, do I want to do my coaching badges? Why? You're not given a chance. So no, I won't be looking forward to doing my coaching badges. It's a waste of time. Waste of time is pretty strong, Curtis. I'm not sure if that's something you go along with.
No, I don't think it's a waste of time. But again, if that's the perception that's being put out there to all these players that are coming through, love the game and want to stay in the game, then there's a problem at the top. There's a problem in the country, isn't there? There's a problem in the league. And sometimes it's probably just not just football, it's the society. People saying, I don't want to come to England because I won't get a chance. Or I don't want to come to Ireland because I won't get a chance. I think it's huge. I think it's huge, and I think it's something, again, we've seen what's happened over the last few weeks, months. I think it was a Keane at Juventus.
Yeah.
You know, he's the guiding light of Italian football. He's come through, and then you've got the captain of Italy saying, well, he's really asking for it. He shouldn't debate the fans. You're thinking, hold on a minute. He's a young kid that scored a wonderful goal, and you've got 10,000 people making monkey chants. Is that acceptable? It's not acceptable. So I just think that there's so many things. Montenegro with the English team. You know, there is no doubt. I played the Sunderland in a derby game, and I was getting monkey chants. I played down in Wales for Middlesbrough, and I was getting the Irish, black, it was everything. And at that time it was more acceptable, but it's not acceptable now. So I think the powers that be have to stand up now and stop worrying about money and start worrying about kudos in the league. The league and the game in England especially is so strong now that I think that they can make a stand. They can make a stand and say, okay, if Danny Rose is saying that, is Dele Alli sat with Danny Rose, looking, on the English trips? And he sat with Lingard, with Sterling, and they all sat and thinking, I tell you what, I'd love to get a coach and I love working with the kids, but I tell you, there's no point. Then you're losing a whole generation of international footballers.
Yeah. Like, what is that stand, Curtis? What is that fix?
For me, I think the FA have to be a lot stronger. I think it was Calgary where Mose, my pronunciation isn't great, but they had no fine or anything from the Italian FA this week. You've probably seen that. Yeah. So it's okay to racially abuse the guiding light of Italian football. It's okay. So you shouldn't be really celebrating goals in front of the away fans. That just happened. You're a young kid, you lose the head. So I think that especially these federations, I think the FA have to stand up and make a real point. And I honestly think that it won't be long before a couple of players are going to walk off the pitch.
Is that the correct course of action, Curtis?
I think people will think it's 50-50. You can argue in both ways. I think if you're losing 3-0 and the away fans are losing 3-0 and they go, I tell you what, we monkey chat for the next 20 minutes and get the game called off. You know what I mean? They'll think they can affect games. Do you stand there and take it? Does the one player come off and we substitute him? I'm not sure what the right way is, but something big has to happen. It can't just keep going on. Everyone keeps saying, it's okay. I went in and met a lot of kids a couple of weeks ago in an inner city, the inner city area in Middlesbrough, and I was talking. And they made a comment about one of the Asian guys, and it was. I said, hold on a minute, you can't be saying that. And the kid said, that's all right, he's me mate. So I'm thinking, okay, so if Man United are playing Liverpool, it's okay for Liverpool to hammer Lukaku having Sterling on the pitch. It's got to be education, society, and society, football grounds, football terraces, and football seating areas, and a cross-section of society. What we need is some people, really, for me, to stand around or turn around and say to somebody, I tell you what, I'm unhappy with you doing that. I don't really like that. And it may be one person, but it may be 100 people, it may be 1,000. But something's got to give, because it can't just keep going on. Because, as I said to you again, we'll lose a generation of players. You lose a generation of players.
Yeah, Curtis, it's probably a topic we could probably go on and on, to be fair, and we could probably, I'd love to get you back on the topic as well, Ferdinand Lambert. There's one person that you mentioned early on that stuck out to me from your time at St Pat's was Brian Kerr. Yes. I don't know how up to speed you are with everything that's happened here over the last couple of months, but essentially Brian Kerr's been out of the game here over in Ireland for such a long time now. Yes. First of all, your relationship with Brian, and further down the line, would you like to see Brian Kerr be reintroduced to Irish football within the structure, within some sort of role within the FAI going forward?
Yeah, I think Kev will be a huge fan. As I said, he took me from Belvedere. I was 18, I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing, and I was thinking I was working in a shop and I was grand, and I was playing with my mates, and he came, I always remember he came to the house to speak to me mum, God rest her soul, and he said, I'm going to start you for the first 10 games of the League of Ireland season. He said, no one else will give you that. He said, but if you do well, great. If not, I'm going to throw you out, but I'm going to give you that chance. And for me, that was huge. That was huge. Only two managers, Brian Robson, did that with me as well at Middlesbrough, and I thought I'd run through a wall for them. So I'd run through a wall for Brian. And I keep in contact with him. He's always dropped me little texts and messages and keep the head up, or well done, or I'll bump into him in Dublin. And we'll go and have a quick pint. And I just think it's a waste, Kev. I think it's a waste. Deep down, Brian Kerr loves Ireland and loves Irish football. He was ahead of his time when he brought those 16s and 18s to winning World Cups. And I think that it's amazing that he hasn't been involved. And as we said, sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and say, okay, let's sit down, have a cup of coffee, and what do you think? Because there's no doubt he's gone, Kev, you know him, he's gone to every game in Ireland at the moment. He's gone to under 11s, 12s, 13s. He'll go to a pub league, he'll be looking at players because it's just in his blood. And I just think it's a waste. I just think it's a waste of a talent. We're a very small country, really. With a small population. And, and we've only got a smaller then football population. And people who love the game. He's one of them. And he's respected. I remember meeting him once. We played Liverpool. Kevin, he was in with Gerard Houllier.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Houllier was saying, how you doing, Brian? And great to have you. You spoke great at this convention, this conference. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute. I was kind of bound to the both of them. Hello, how you doing? Are you okay? But I just think it's a waste. I think we've got to get him back in. And he has a passion for the game. He loves Ireland. And I think just a waste. Get as many people who really want to be involved. Not for self-publicity or for themselves or a selfish way. Careful. I think the lads have to want to come back and want to get involved. And it's not about them, it's about the badge.
And it is a great opportunity, Curtis, for the FAI, given the overhaul at the top brass now, to actually make that one of their, maybe not at the top of the priority list, but eventually get around to the idea. I
think he should be the top of the priority list. I really do believe that. I think he has to be involved, and I think it's criminal in a football term that we've not had a person of his knowledge, a person of his, something that Curtis touched on there, his passion. It's not about Brian. It's about others, and that's the way that he's always been. And that's why it is criminal in football terms that he's not been involved for such a long time.
It's exactly, Kevin. To be fair, I was going to show me age there. I was saying if you want 10p to go to the telephone box and make that call, just you know. I'd probably miss the.
It's all about Skype and FaceTime now, and WhatsApp calls and all this, Curtis. You know what I mean? We've changed now.
I wanted to know who Skype was playing for. That's all I.
Listen,
Kev, I think you're bang on there, and I really. There's no doubt I could call him in a minute. Do you know what I mean? You could call him in a minute and say, "Come on, Brian," and again, you know, he calls me Rasher. How are you, Rasher? And he gets cranky if you don't call him a little bit. He gets cranky here and there, and stuff like that. And he will get cranky with people in meetings because he's so passionate and strong. But then we've got to tunnel that, and we've got to use him. We've got to use him because it can only add. It'll never be negative. It'll never be detrimental to the FAI or to the country or the standard of football. Or even if you think about the future now, Kev, you know, let's start working with the 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s, right through and having a way to play. You know, having a way to play and having a belief. And then, you know, we can supplement that with players that we pick up as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Curtis, it's been fascinating chatting to you. Thanks so much for being so kind with your time. Thanks, and very best of luck with whatever is coming next.
Thanks very much, lads. Enjoyed it, and all the best. And Kev, great to see you. Speak to you again.
Good man. Cheers, Curtis. Thanks a lot.
Curtis Fleming there on the line, former Ireland international and former first team coach with Middlesbrough. Great guy, and like the Brian Kerr
so well in everything though, doesn't he? And do you know what, Curtis has actually done quite a bit of punditry. When I did a little bit at Setanta and Air Sports, and Curtis did a lot of commentary in there as well. Very, very good commentary, very good pundit as well, actually. So, you know, we might want to use him further down the line next season as well. But his passion, you can see his passion's there for coaching, and I think he's got an ability there that needs to be tapped into as well, and that's hopefully the case for him going forward.
You'd love to have been a fly in the wall for that Brian Kerr, Gerard Houllier conversation. That would have been fantastic.
I'd love to be a fly in the wall for Brian Kerr, Curtis Fleming and his mum's chat all those years ago as well. Can you imagine Brian going around, knocking on the front door, going around for the chat?
Yeah, to be fair, if Brian Kerr tells you to do something, you listen, don't you? Just to tell you before we wrap up, we've got a very special off-the-ball show for horse racing fans coming up tonight. We're going to be at the new Curragh Racecourse with an all-star lineup from the world of racing and sport to preview the Curragh Spring Festival. Johnny Murtagh and Kildare All-Ireland finalist turned trainer Willie McCreary will be joining Ger and John Duggan, as will tip legend Babs Keating. They'll be previewing the Curragh Spring Festival, which runs from 24th, that's a Friday, to Sunday the 26th of May, and features the Tattersall's Irish 1,000 and 2,000 guineas and the Gold Cup, the first classics of the season. The only way to enjoy the show is to be there tonight, and there are still a few last minute tickets left at offtheball.com/events. Make sure you get your tickets for the festival itself then at curragh.ie. Kevin, it's been a pleasure. Thanks a million for popping in.
Can I just say one thing as well? Can I get a donation for the Down Syndrome for the Down Syndrome Centre in Cabintini? If someone makes a small donation, they can get these boots. Tweet me or tweet Off the Ball, and you'll get these boots.
Worn once?
Top of the range Umbro. Worn, I wouldn't even say once, I'd say worn for about 10 minutes. Brand spanking new. Umbro, top of the range boots, so the good boots as well.
We'll announce the winner of that later on our social channels today, so tweet us at Off The Ball or tweet Kevin himself, and hopefully we'll get a bit of an auction going on. We're back on air and online from 7 o'clock tonight, and the Off The Wall take on the final Game of Thrones is live. That's Kevin Kilbane's favourite product from Off The Ball. Andy has had a lot to say about the conclusion of Game of Thrones.
I can imagine.
We're back from.
I'm with Andy tomorrow. I'm with Andy Lee tomorrow. He'll end up giving me an uppercut or something. Yeah.
That's a bit of a spoiler of a bit of Off The Ball content coming down the line, and it's going to be good. So keep your eyes peeled for Kevin and Andy in a few weeks. We're back live from 7:30 tomorrow morning. Keith Andrews and Alan Quinlan will be beside myself and Adrian. We'll chat to you then. Bye bye for now.